unless you have, especially those that are used to donor funding. You don't move this pen from this point to that point because donor has not given us some money.
But their mandate is
Get
not,
to a point
their
where
mandate,
you start thinking of how you can move a pen without getting
their mandate,
funded.
maybe you can prove me wrong, is not to source the funding. Their mandate is to carry out research.
Yeah, but KEMRI does source funding.
But you see, most of the funding that goes into KEMRI is research-based. So if I am the University of X and I'm funding A, B, C, and D in KEMRI, you have to work within that line of budget of funding and whatnot.
Yep.
You cannot, if you are saying doing a research on HIV, and that is what my funding is on, you cannot come and divert that money to not do coronavirus because it's a national thing.
Totally understand.
It cannot. So government has to put in money.
Totally understand.
into
Now let's talk about that
coronavirus.
HIV, all right, and funding for HIV and some research. KEMRI is a research institution. Nothing else. It's research. For every kind of research that they're conducting, they want to have some line of funding. Okay. Now, this is an organization that is used to, we're coming up with the research for this and the other. They seek for funding for this, seek for funding for the other. They receive funding for every particular project that they're doing. Getting to a point where you are thinking, all right, basically what I'm trying to impute improper motive here for, and I'm saying, I apologize to KEMRI and everybody who works there. They're professionals. I'm just throwing it out there because I'm a Kenyan and we talk. Organizations that are used to receiving donor funding will at one point get so used to receiving donor funding that to open a door, you require to write a proposal to get donor funding to open a door. When you're told, just go and open the door. See, the door is there and you have your arms. Just open the door.
Unfortunately, that's how the scientific world works.
Let them give us tests, man.
Unfortunately, that's how it works.
Let them account for how much money you've given them so far and tell us, this is how much money you've received so far, and this is how many tests we've had. And those two, there's a correlation. And then we can say that, our capacity to test has been hampered by lack of funding and lack of sourcing for funds for KEMRI and all those things. Because it's a multiplicity from what I'm thinking. It's a multiplicity. Yes, there's lack of funding. There's also, as you've seen with all other arms of government, lethargy in movement. Same way we see forms not being printed at the airport. Same way we see people taking so long to be admitted to quarantine. Same way we see people who are in charge of quarantine facilities mismanaging. I would not be shocked if you find it's the same kind of lethargy in other arms of government. My rant is over.
Rant done for the morning?
Not yet.
For this moment?
I think for this
between
moment.
6 and 6:15,
Be
the
warned.
Eric Latif rant is
But you
over.
won. You see how he started.
I think we should actually make that a segment, John. And Eric needs a moment between 6:08 and 6:10 to say things.
As a Kenyan.
Before people wake up.
Before
As a
people wake
Kenyan.
up. All right.
So of KEMRI and lab things. The 3-month work plan. This is the budget that was presented to the National Assembly. They required $950,000, which was about, how much is that?
It's about
9.5 million.
Sorry?
950,000.
Yes, US dollars.
It's almost a billion
a billion shillings
Yes.
for lab reagents and sample collection kits. That's actually 101 million shillings for lab reagents.
$950,000? No.
That's
times 100.
$90,000 would be a million. Would be 9 million.
That is
900,000 would be 95 billion.
Yeah.
This
so
is
it's about 101 is okay.
Yeah,
if you're using whatever, 106.
Yeah.
Could be. Then the lab equipment is 65 million. Lab PPE, 10 million. So you're looking at just under 200 million for KEMRI, or rather for the labs, to work for the next 3 months.
How many tests?
They haven't quantified it in terms of
the
tests.
3 months.
They haven't quantified it in terms of
Have
tests.
they received this?
This is what they budgeted for. This is what they presented to the ministry. This is the 2.3 that they were saying they were negotiating with the World Bank. 2.3 billion. So plus other costs that include surveillance and rapid response, isolation and treatment facilities. So it's a whole bunch of everything.
Okay.
But the labs is about 200 million.
200 M for 3 months.
For 3 months' time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, have they been given this money?
No, that's money that they are still negotiating.
So they're still asking for that money. So how much money have they received so far? since March. Between March and May, how much they've received, how many test kits we've received in total. But I think when we speak to Mutaika, we'll also find out.
We'll find out
how many test kits do we have? How many have we consumed? How many do we have in store?
Mm-hmm.
And then
actually, that's very important.
And we can look at now that and say, okay, so the reason why we have done, how many tests do we have now? 33,000. Yesterday it was at 31.
31.
Okay.
So that's at 32,000. We'll just check that number. Just
32,000. Basically, we do less than 1,500 tests a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate because the capacity of testing in this country vis-a-vis what is actually being tested, there's a want. So we're looking about what you can do versus what you actually do is upwards of 10,000 in a day.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I dare, look, not to scare anybody, but if we're actually, even if we're doing 2,000-3,000 more tests than are currently being carried out, you'd probably find that the number in Kenya would be beyond the 700 that we're looking at. That's almost a guaranteed thing. And we don't know the real numbers of those who are infected in this country because we're not testing adequately. And we're not able to isolate because we don't know the truth. We don't know who's walking around with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I remember just over the weekend, the Machakos governor, Alfred Mutua, said he gave the case of one individual who had been tested positive for COVID. And the history they had of him is that over the last 2 weeks, he used the matatu every day to and from work.
Yep.
They don't know whether he was wearing a mask. You don't know, of course, which matatu he entered and which he did not. So it is possible that you have very many people wandering about who've come in contact with him.
It is quite possible because remember from the government data itself, 3/4 of the people are asymptomatic. That means they're like you and I.
Exactly. But
No cough, no fever, nothing.
The only
They're
person
just
that we know
carriers.
was negative 2 weeks ago is you. We
Right.
don't know how we were. Maybe
Yeah.
by then we've already
You've gotten it,
My
gotten over
problem,
it,
though-
shed it.
given it to you.
My problem,
Yeah,
though, is
again.
that because of the fact that they're moving about in the manner in which we do as human beings,
Yep.
they could come in contact with somebody who's a little bit more vulnerable
Yep.
or somebody
Yes.
who has the pre-existing condition to which COVID now would make that worse.
Actually,
That's the problem.
that is a fear.
Yeah.
That is a fear. Like the healthy population, where a majority of the Kenyan diagnosed is between 30 and 39. That's where almost half of the people are. If these particular people are to move around freely, and they will because they are the most productive members of society, they will interact ultimately with somebody who has TB, somebody who has hypertension, somebody who has diabetes, somebody who's old, and shed the virus and transfer the virus to them.
Yeah.
And then it's that person now that will suffer from the virus. Now, I've looked at, this is the PS response after the all outcry about the 4 million of Mandazi and tea. This is what she presented to the National Assembly. Lab reagents and sample collection kits were to cost 330 million. And then the Roche test kits were to cost 196 million. These were to be purchased through KEMSA and UNICEF. So it would be good to find out from the CS if this has already been done, because this is money that was already there.
Yeah.
Remember, she was defending that no money has been spent, no money has been lost. It was just a budget we are presenting. So it would be good to know if this 526 million has been used where it's supposed to be used. And if so, why are we seeing so few tests? And then I don't think the reason that there's a global shortage, global supply chain problems is an issue, because here even Roche understands that, there's a crisis. We need to work overtime to produce as many reagents as possible for people to get. And KQ is a national carrier. Just send it to Switzerland, bring in the kits. It's
Even
a one-way
beyond that,
flight.
I mean, we have examples of other countries who are, close proximity to Kenya. Even if you want to look across the continent in Senegal, they're doing thousands of tests per day. South Africa is doing the same thing. There's a source where they're getting these tests from. There's something they're doing. In this case, copycat would not be a bad idea. It doesn't hurt anybody in any way, shape, or form. So
It's
I'm
another
sorry, but I would
conversation
want
we'll
to
have actually, and talk about what Senegal is doing, those rapid tests of theirs versus our PCR tests, and whether it makes sense for us to go that route of Senegal, and whether it's actually even showing us good numbers. What Senegal are testing very many. They're getting whatever results they're getting. is that a true reflection, or is it close to the truth of the situation on the ground in Senegal? Right? We'll have that discussion. 7 to 8, a lot of all this talk. So let's look globally. What's happening?
Right. So last week we talked about Brazil raising this number. And Brazil, when we spoke last week, scarily enough, was at 124,000 cases. Today, Brazil is at 169,594 cases. And in the last few hours, if we're looking at GMT, they've recorded 451 cases. So that in the last 6 hours, 451 cases in Brazil already, with the deaths to 11,653. Whereas it was kind of a silent contributor to this, and then suddenly we see numbers spiking. There was a lockdown in Brazil for some time, but then they opened up and released and loosened the restrictions. And in South America now, Brazil is being
it's the hotspot.
It's the hotspot. It is the epicenter now for COVID. If you want to look at other countries where things seem not to be changing at all, China is still at seeing very many people recovering from this. The number remains interesting. Look at this: 82,919 cases overall in China, 4,633 deaths, 78,171 cases recovered. So you're looking at, truthfully, less than 5,000 active cases of COVID in China as we speak. So in terms of reducing the gaps, flattening the curve, one country with a glaring example of how of what they've been able to do. Despite the many rumors that were flying about them not giving the right numbers in terms of what the real situation on the ground was, they've been able to do this and reduce the numbers quite significantly. Mexico.
Shall we take a break and look at weather, and then you come back?
Okay, sure.
And we look at the numbers going around the world, right? This is what's happening. 18 minutes after 6 o'clock, this is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we'll look at COVID-19 in numbers globally, what's happening in the world, what's happening in the epicenters of Europe, of South America, what's emerging to be the epicenter in Africa now. We are seeing the numbers rising in several countries and the number of tests and the response that the governments are taking. So let's take a look at weather, and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo-soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 15 degrees in Nairobi right around this morning. We're looking at mostly cloudy conditions today. Chance of rain still high, though, in this part of the country. Highs of 25 is what we'll see today, even when the rain comes down. It's 16 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nyeri this morning. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 23. In Nakuru at 15 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. The rain will set in early, highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's 15 degrees in... it's 21 degrees in Kisumu. We'll see thunderstorms later, highs of 27 and lows of 20. Cloudy conditions in Mombasa will rule the day at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 28. It's going to be a wet day through the coast. Malindi at 26 degrees as well. The rain is likely to set in early this morning with highs of 28 and lows of 25. 21 degrees and cloudy in Kampala, Uganda this morning. We'll see thunderstorms there later as well with highs of 25 and lows of 19. Mostly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 24 today. In Johannesburg, it's 9 degrees, clear skies and sunny conditions all through today, highs of 21 and lows of 8. When the sun does come up in Lagos, it'll be clear skies with few clouds at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 25, and mostly cloudy conditions will pursue. It's about 11 p.m. in New York, and it's mostly cloudy. It'll be clear skies through through Tuesday in New York. We'll see highs of 14 and lows of 6. Paris at 6 degrees will be clear. The sun will come up soon, and those clear conditions will last through the day with highs of 16 and lows of 6. And finally, for now in London, it's clear skies but chilly conditions at 3 degrees. It's going to cool down quite significantly today with highs only reaching 10 and lows of 1.
Spice FM.
So, Ndu, give us the numbers now.
All right. So let's look in the United States, where we are seeing 1,385,834 cases, with total deaths now at 81,795. They're inching closer and closer every day to a 10% of the full number of deaths that we see. Unfortunately, and I say this with the fullest conviction, that they have not reached the plateau. Unfortunately, it has not reached the point whereby now they start to come down. If anything, we continue to see a steady increase across states. We see a lot of things coming out of the US whereby, the school calendar has been shut down for the rest of the year. They're not going back to school, for example. However, they're trying to open up the economy even as we speak and say, all right, there's certain things that we can still keep at bay, but there's certain things that we would like to do so that we get back a lot of this money that COVID has forced us to spend. We still see in Spain that the numbers are indicative of 10% deaths of the total number of cases in Spain, with 268,143 versus 26,744. The UK, which has now quickly passed Russia and Italy, 223,060 cases with 32,065 deaths in the UK. And they're still now trying to figure this out. We saw that they went from ideas of the herd mentality and then now changed their minds on that, and then went to massive testing, and now we see, and unfortunately, a lot of the cases that people who are ill and were in hospital, unfortunately now are passing.
Yeah, because I was wondering why so many deaths in the UK. It's like all of a sudden they've been okay, and then there's a big number of people dying in the UK.
Yeah, this is what we see. We spoke about Brazil and what is happening there. Interestingly enough, Mexico seems to be following suit in Central America, where quite a number of cases in the last 6 hours, 1,305 cases in Mexico, and they're slowly inching towards the 40,000 case mark, with 3,573 deaths. Now, if you want to look specifically in Africa, and you want to look, in Africa, where's the epicenter? And it seems to be South Africa now, with over 10,000 cases that have been seen. However, the number of deaths in South Africa is not even 2%. Well under 1% of the cases is what is ending in death, unfortunately. Some of the North African and West African countries following in hot pursuit, with Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia following closely. Egypt almost at 10,000 with 9,746. So we're looking at some countries clearly, as we said, testing more, and that's why you have a lot more of these cases. Some countries just not doing anything about it. Burundi, for example, who have never really dealt. I think they took on an attitude of, well,
we have an election. It's bigger.
You need to vote in a new president, and
COVID can take
aside.
a back
And if you
seat.
look at it anyway, the kind of journey that Burundi has had to get to this point of an election, it's an existential crisis. Having an election, it's bigger than COVID.
It's bigger than anything that you're going to bring at this point.
It's bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger. So let them have their election. It's fine. They'll survive. They will live.
I've not had any. Surprisingly, I've not had any news from Burundi, like about anything. You know, the way Tanzania, we're always hearing rumors here and there that, you know, something is happening in Tanzania or something is not happening in Tanzania. Hardly anything from Burundi.
Well, there is a lot actually. Well, regarding the election, the upcoming election, what they've done is they've said we're going to have an election and we will allow observers to come in, AU and international observers to come in. The only rule that we'd have is when you come in, you go into quarantine for 21 days.
And they come out of quarantine after the election.
The election is. So they'll have observed it.
And they're not, they're not doing any kind of testing. And interestingly enough, the cases that you've been reported in Burundi is 15.
15.
15 cases.
Okay.
But I must understand.
That means they're testing something.
Well, somewhere.
It's something, yeah.
Somebody's
something.
testing something.
Yeah.
But in terms of mass testing, government mandated this, that, the other thing. It, like Eric said, it's taking a back seat. There are other things that we need to deal with now. Maybe when we have a new president, then we'll start testing that kind of thing. But for now, no, it's not a priority. I mean, and even other things you can see. Their football league continued as if nothing had happened.
Yeah.
People are walking about as if, there's no threat. So, all right. That's what they've been able to
Life's
do.
happening in Burundi.
Oh, yes, it is.
They've taken the Sweden route. Could be.
Maybe.
Where life
Tanzania, we're still waiting for the results to come out, weekly, right?
Oh, no, the results from last week came out on Friday, and that's where they said they had 28 cases. So now, Tanzania's total is 508, 509 cases. And that's what they have. And they're still going full throttle on this Madagascar herbal treatment, which Dr. Mercy doesn't like. But
they've received it, and have they started distributing it?
I don't know if they have. I don't know if they've received it. We know that they sent a fact-finding mission to Madagascar. We heard reports yesterday. I mean, out of the BBC, widespread, that despite the World Health Organization warning that none of this has been tested, African countries are buying this thing by the truckload. So,
but it hasn't been tested. So you can imagine if you're asymptomatic and you're given this herbal remedy. And you test negative, they'll say it's the herbal remedy that has helped you. But you don't have any symptoms. So the virus is going to go away anyway. So
this has helped it to go away.
Let's not get into that. It will be a whole
Some senior
long
scientists and
conversation.
researcher was saying, well, giving somebody that and giving them water, same thing.
Same thing.
We are going to take this medicine. Okay, Mercy? We will take this medicine.
It's okay, you take it, but don't attribute your getting rid or healing from COVID to the medicine.
If we
it hasn't
boost our
been
immunity,
tested.
it will help us.
we'll be okay.
If we stay alive, we'll talk about it. Right? Same. This is... Unless you come and give us those pills that you guys are working on, or injections. In the meantime,
it's like the
leave
aunties
us
and mothers of
be.
days of old. They'd squeeze a lemon into something ridiculous like a cobweb, and you feel better the next morning. Who are you to tell them that
it
their thing
didn't
did not work?
It worked. It did work. Babu Loliondo got many people going to visit him. Right?
People
there
died.
There are those that
People
and
died
then
en
those that
route.
didn't. There are those that at the same time, people were, others were going to Babu Loliondo, others were going to hospital. There are those who died, there are those who came out.
Same difference.
Drink the thing.
Same difference, Eric. Really.
The thing.
I have no words
You
for
wait.
you people.
I'm being
They'll
facetious.
bring it here. You see people rushing.
Yesterday I
And
was like,
Madagascar is really going ham on that,
yeah.
they're-
And they have only 186 cases and no deaths. So their case is strong.
what if they're not reporting anything more?
Well,
Because
They've decided to
all
market.
of these things depend on countries coming out and saying we have so many. this is what we have. So if people don't come out,
It's what
you
they
won't know.
tell you.
It's what they tell
It's
you.
what they tell you. So you have to take their word
If
for
they don't
it.
tell you, they don't tell you. You don't know, right? So
At this rate, somebody will come up with anointed water or a tot of water from their tap and say, this
I'm
works
sure-
for
Don't
COVID.
but that already, I'm sure that is somewhere.
Somebody is selling
Oh,
a
yes.
tot of water
You wait. You wait. Once this
know,
whole
with
Wuhan
a bit
hullabaloo
of
ends,
lemon juice squeezed into it to give it some flavor.
Yes.
Then you're like, this works for COVID.
There
I
will
have
be-
tried it.
there will be some
It will
holy water.
prevent you from
I'm
getting
telling you,
COVID.
it'll be holy water.
it'll come from some part of Italy saying that those people who survived, they
They
survived
drank
because
this.
they drank this.
They drank this.
Telling you, wait and see. These churches
Anointed
that we saw,
water.
And
who would Mountain of Fire Holy Ministry 7 days
Yeah.
glory. Wait and see.
Half
They will
past
soon have
6.
something.
Taking a look at traffic shortly, but let's go into today's proverb. Today's proverb comes from Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. So he created a proverb, and it says, he didn't. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Self-explanatory, isn't it? Prepare yourself, allow yourself to be well trained when you have the opportunity, and you'll achieve a lot in due course. Just get your hands washed, child. You will eat with kings. Let's take a look at traffic shortly. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
All right, guys, let's see what it looks like around the city today. Let's start in Nairobi. Yesterday we had quite some action, but today it looks like things have started really well. The sun is coming up in all her glory this morning on Kangunda Road, and the traffic is also behaving. There's not much to report about right now. Let's look on the other side of things. On Waiaki, we're getting into the CBD. Is actually looking pretty good. Not much traffic either. Namanga Road, heading then past Kitengela and onto Mombasa Road, where then we get to Cabanas. It looks good as well. Not much. The bypasses are open and there's no drama there. I know the temptation is to move a little bit faster because there's not much traffic, but you want to be careful, guys. And I'm going to give a warning out now because it seems to be happening quite a lot. If there's a pool of water for which you cannot see the bottom, please don't step into it. Don't drive into it. We still have the dregs of floods in many parts of the country, and that's the sound out. Before we see what other traffic is being formed this morning, please don't step into or drive into bodies of water for which you cannot see the bottom. Too many accidents happening in that area, guys. Okay, Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We'll give you an update in a short while about what the roads look like in the city and around the country.
What do you have?
You're
Eeny,
spoiled
meeny,
for
miny,
choice.
mo.
Madam Chair.
Eeny, meeny,
Pick.
Dear lady.
You're not going to let it go, are you?
No.
Okay. How Uhuru cooked Ruto's goose. Sounds nice.
Who ate it?
Who ate the goose? It's just been cooked. Has it been eaten? We don't know. As predicted, President Kenyatta moved to decapitate Deputy President William Ruto's influence in the Senate by replacing allies Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Kihika, but they won't go without a fight. Pushback, Murkomen and Kihika say that they are going nowhere. There have been accusations of foul play. There have been accusations of forgery and misrepresentation of the Senate. And they have vowed to stay put as Uhuru oversees changes at the Senate. The trouble that has been brewing in the Jubilee Party boiled over yesterday, with President Kenyatta presiding over the sacking of Senate leaders allied to his deputy William Ruto. But in a show of open defiance, Senators Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Kihika, who were kicked out as majority leader and majority whip respectively, told Mr. Kenyatta it was not over yet and that they are not going anywhere. We can't run the country through forgery, Mr. Murkomen told reporters at Parliament buildings, attacking the president for the way he handled this meeting at State House. In the changes, West Pokot Senator Samuel Pogishio was elected the new leader of the majority, while Murang'a Senator Irungu Kangata was elevated to the position of majority whip. Isiolo Senator Fatuma Dolo retained her seat as the deputy majority leader, while nominated Senator Faria Ali got a major boost in her short political career when she was elected the deputy majority whip. And these things happened very quickly. I think by the time you said, see you tomorrow, yesterday, all of this was done. And
Again, what's the name of the outgoing Senate majority leader?
outgoing.
Yeah. What's his
I
name?
know what you're trying to do. So now please just
No,
say his name. I'm not falling into this trap. Remember I said, you see pools of water, you don't see the bottom, don't step in. This one I'm not
So
stepping
you're
in.
not stepping in.
Oh yeah.
These are not still waters. This is rapids. just jump in. Feet first.
Both feet first.
Not boarding. Yeah. Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. So, Senate Majority Leader Parks. Just in case you're wondering what's at stake, what's it? I mean, just
What's
being
the
a
problem?
majority leader. First of all right, are you ready? Salary with a ceiling of 1.056 million shillings. That's a million shilling 56,000. The salary is 792,000 shillings. 2 state vehicles, particularly Toyota Land Cruiser V8 and a Mercedes Benz, maintained by the taxpayer. Okay? This is what the Senate Majority Leader gets. 2 vehicles, a Land Cruiser and a Mercedes, and a salary of between 792,000 and 1 million shillings. 150,000 shillings responsibility allowance. First class or business class travel within and abroad. Just within, first class. Abroad, first class. 3 police bodyguards, but can request the Inspector General of Police for more or less. 5 staff, a researcher, a secretary, an office assistant, a media relations officer, and a personal assistant. I've never come across Kipchumba's media relations officer. I should ask him.
You know, I was about to ask, where are all of these 5 staff?
I can imagine researcher, yes. I can imagine a secretary, or I can imagine an office assistant. I can also imagine a media relations officer. It's just that I've not met that person.
But
And a
even-
personal assistant.
But even researcher.
Yeah, you know,
Is there
in the office
anything?
What are you
Is there
researching?
anything about that office
that requires
that
research.
that has convinced you that there's some researcher behind it?
Yeah. Yeah. All the bills that are taken to the Senate. Now, let's give credit where it's due. All the bills that are taken to the Senate and they are presented by the majority leader, the majority leader will need to have internalized what he's presenting. So that's what the researcher will help him with, right? So he'll internalize this, he'll be doing his research. Research also does not necessarily just only mean, it's mostly thinking about Parliament and Parliament's work, okay? 20,000 shillings airtime monthly. He sits in the Senate House Business Committee, the organ that runs the Senate. This is a very powerful person. So when you're talking about, whether we're talking about the leadership of the country, a Senate Majority Leader and a National Assembly Majority Leader is one of those at the very top. Okay? So that's some good cash. 790. Let's just do the minimum. 790 plus 150 plus 20 plus cars plus bodyguards plus staff plus all these things of whenever you need to fly to
First class.
Algeria Margaret, so you just go to Eldoret, chap ndege inalipwa, go home. It's a good life. I would not go down without a fight either. But my fight would be, please, Rice, please.
Help me.
Me, I am a good man.
This idea.
Mimi niko nyuma
Serikali
yako.
saidia.
You see what is happening to Duale? There's a lot of talk that Duale will not live. Duale is playing his game very well.
He's behaving, as it were.
He has behaved.
Yeah, I'm looking at the choices of replacements, and I'm wondering if there's a message being sent. If you look at Senate majority, the West Pokot senator is from the same vicinity as Elgeyo Marakwet.
Neighbor.
Actually, you can say they are just really the same people. Muranga senator, who's now the chief whip, is from the same, not to be tribal, but really.
He's a Kikuyu just like Susan Keheka.
Exactly.
I've helped you.
And then now the clincher for me is the Isiolo senator and the nominated senator Farhia Haj. These are one women, two minority from a minority communities, and from those areas known to be marginalized over a long period of time. So I'm wondering if there's a longer game plan here by choosing those two. They could have chosen anyone.
Yeah.
It's true.
But
It
they picked
was touted that Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja was to take that position.
Which
However, he let it he let it go for her. This is what is being reported.
Yeah.
He said that he said
Deputy
he was
Majority
going to-
Whip.
Right. But he decided to let
It's a
it
low
go
position
for
for
her.
Sakaja, though. That would have been like, come on. Deputy Sakaja, deputy something. Why? Should be the majority leader or nothing. Or majority whip. That's it. End. Anything else is beneath Johnson Sakaja, super senator.
So I think
Anyway,
there's a game plan here.
It's true. Let's talk about the two ladies. Isiolo Senator Fatima Dulo Aden, who is now the deputy majority leader. She is serving her second term in the Senate. She is among the three women who made history by being the first to be elected as senators. All right? Elected as senator among the first women. She had served as a nominated senator between 2013 and 2017. The Isiolo senator who once served in the provincial administration. She was the first woman DO from her Borana community and has had an exemplary career in the House, reflected in her being the face of the Defense, Security and National Administration Committee in the last parliament, despite being the vice chair. She is currently chairing the Senate ad hoc committee that has been probing the controversial medical equipment scheme. Dulo, a lawyer by profession, has previously, in 2007, worked as a commissioner with the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. So, Kenya National Human Rights Commission. It's the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Editor, please correct. Kenya National Commission on Human. This is the government one. The Kenya Human Rights Commission is the NGO one.
The NGO
so you see, she has some serious pedigree, and she brings some serious pedigree into this position. She is not a first timer.
True.
She's as old as the Senate of the Republic of Kenya, right? She has served in both houses. She has served in government. She has, worked in crucial committees. She's been a vice chair of a Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, but a Defense, Security and National Administration Committee, but she's been the face of it. Good
No,
CV.
good CV. Definitely good CV and good choice in that case.
Farhia Ali Haji, the Deputy Majority Whip, the Standard says little was known in public and especially in political circles about Farhia Ali Haji, who was designated to take the position of Deputy Majority Chief Whip until she was nominated by Jubilee Party as a senator in 2017. So it's her first term. A look into social network platforms only indicates that she has had before being nominated. She worked with Oxfam, an international charitable organization that focuses on alleviating poverty. From 1995, rising to the position of Director for Operations in Kenya, from where she was fetched by Jubilee. So Oxfam rose to position of Director of Operations in the country. She has served in different Oxfam programs in Kenya, South Sudan and Somalia. So in terms of a professional career, we can see where it's coming from. And then Jubilee picked her and nominated her into the Senate. And now Jubilee has elevated her to position of deputy majority whip in the Senate. Like you're saying, Marcia, I think it's not just it cannot be accidental.
No, they could have picked. If you're looking at women, you have Margaret Kamar, for example.
Yep.
Professor Kamar.
Yep.
She could have fit the bill.
You know, there's the issue of Ruto's party with in the first government, URP, having been a pastoralist party, and the talk of either if Ruto comes from Jubilee, he'll try and galvanize the pastoralists again together. So this is could be one way of just showing the pastoralists, you know what, we haven't left you. Actually, we are still with you.
Still with you.
So if this guy comes and trying to fish you, we'll tell him,
but
sisi
you are
tuko kwa serikali
represented.
bwana. Serikali gani wanatuambia? We are inside.
So this is.
I don't think anything about this was unintentional. I think that all of the moves that we see here were deliberate.
They're very deliberate.
And I think there were very many areas that were being covered here, from the gender card to the tribal card, the regional card, demographics, all of that. And this was skillfully put together. I think that they didn't want to leave any stones unturned. So there was nothing that just happened as a by chance.
So I'm looking at page 2 and 3 of the Standard. We have Samuel Pogisio as indicated as Senate Majority Leader. And then on page 3, and Irungu Kangata as the Majority Chief Whip.
Yep.
Then on page 3, where you have a photo of Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Keheka, still referred to as Senate Majority Leader and Majority Whip.
It's not done until it's done. It's not over. until
it's over. Until the fat lady thing.
Yeah.
So when do these changes
take effect?
When
Today in the Senate, the Speaker is, this communication has to go to the Speaker, and then the Speaker has to announce to the House that these are the changes, and they've been communicated to me by the majority party or majority coalition in the House. So until the Speaker declares this, it's still a proposal.
It's a proposal.
So the party can say that the party met and the party has chosen. And then now this will be communicated to the Speaker, and then the Speaker will communicate to the House, and now becomes official record. So until then, and that's what Kipchumba Murkomen and Keheka and the others are saying, let's wait for this to go. We are still not letting it go. Yep.
So in terms of process, when there's usually in Kenya, there's what is written down, the law that should be followed, the right processes that should be followed. Was this process right?
This one of removing,
yes,
of instilling or removing a majority leader. I think
according to what is laid down.
Ideally, the parliamentary group meets and the parliamentary group chooses its leadership, right? And if you have quorum of the parliamentary group that has met and has chosen a leader, then that is procedural. The question here is, did you have quorum? And that's what the Tanga wing is really pushing. There was no quorum. We have a majority. As guys on our side, we have a majority in that Senate. There is absolutely no way you guys could have had the quorum.
And I was wondering, because even yesterday when Ben Kitili had an interview with David Murathe, and on the other side, in Citizen, there was Irungu Kangata himself and Aaron Cheriot. When they were asked how many senators met, they said over 20.
Yep.
And where I'm sitting, I'm thinking, you couldn't count this over
say
20, just say 21.
17 senators met.
Or, that's a small
two
number. You can
physically,
literally
3 via video conference.
Yeah.
Just say.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they were asked is, okay, so where are the photos of this meeting? Then they're like, when whoever takes it's the prerogative of whoever takes the photos to share the photos.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, people are always so fast to share photos and brag about, what they have done, what they have been up to. How come this is the one time where the photographer reserves all the rights to share the photos? So there could be something from this other side about quorum, and there are 22 the list of 22 senators who signed that, we didn't attend the protest. There could be something. But then again, what I've come to realize in Kenya is what the king wants,
the king
gets.
This is true.
Mwenye chama ameamua. How did Kipchumba Murkomen get the position? Was there a parliamentary group meeting? Was there an election? There's those who are saying, wewe mwenyewe, how did you get that position? Which PG sat down and elected you?
Into that.
Position?
Nani walikupatia
You know, the
kiti?
Kenyans speak without meaning.
I'm sure they asked it just like
Yeah.
that.
Who might have elected you?
Tuambie.
Tuambie. And so this is gonna be a very interesting conversation going forward, in terms of how we see things going. But it's clear, just like the Standard is saying, Uhuruto's stormy divorce. What started as talk of a cold war between the two Jubilee Supremos has developed into a bare-knuckle fight that culminated in Uhuru announcing a leadership change in the Senate yesterday. Next up, the National Assembly. 10.
Eric, you're enjoying this drama so much.
Yeah.
You are thriving in this drama.
We like
I'm
it.
not really enjoying it. I'm just trying to force myself to enjoy it. It's politicians and their political games. They keep playing us all the time. Yeah, so we'll discuss this in detail at 8 o'clock and to see what exactly happens. Barack Muluka, strategic public communications advisor and writer, has an article that he's written today. It's about a horse to ride to power, not one for trading. It's not about horse trading. It's horse to ride to power. The unfolding political drama in the Jubilee Party must be understood behind significance of the words, Uhuru is too young to retire. COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli keeps on sounding this bagel. Regardless, the DP William Ruto has failed to take note of the import of these words. He has not asked Atwoli who sent him to sing this song. He has therefore gone on to position himself as the person to beat in 2022. In the process, he has flown too close to the sun. The political wax that holds his wings in place has started to melt. It's not clear that flying lower this time will be of much use, but in politics, anything is possible. Besides, in the broader sense, Ruto sits only a heartbeat away from the presidential power. So basically, this guy is saying, when you hear Atwoli saying, oh, Uhuru is too young, Uhuru is too young,
There's something.
you should have taken a step back and asked yourself, what exactly are they saying? Should I now be campaigning openly, overtly, or should I be campaigning covertly? Should I seek out to understand what exactly my boss is thinking going forward, or should I seek my own path?
My own path.
That's what Ruto should have done.
All right. It seems that the police are battling to enforce law. Police battling to enforce law face their own COVID-19 fears. A spot check revealed that very little had been done to ensure that police officers are protected. As the agency that are custodians of security, for example. And this is just at a dog section police station in Nakuru. A number of police officers who had just finished the early morning jog converge at the field, ready to part as those who had been on night duty hand over their firearms to the incoming squad outside the police station. There are a number of water points for hand washing. There is also an empty bottle of hand sanitizer, and a few officers have masks on, some white, some light blue, and others made from different fabrics. The station commander briefs the officers as they listen attentively. And officers in the National Police Service have been deployed to enforce laws and regulations put in place to maintain the spread of the pandemic in different capacities across the country. But it comes out that very little is done to protect them in terms of what they need to be wearing as far as masks, as far as hand sanitizer is being used. And this is interesting because trying to enforce the law then without the requirements that you need to protect yourself as well has become an issue.
So ideally, every police officer should have a face mask.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they work outside, right?
Yes.
And every police officer should have access to hand sanitizer or running water and
Right,
soap.
because you can imagine if
But
they're
because
on
you're on the beat,
Yeah.
then you should be carrying a bottle of hand sanitizer with
there you go.
the small bottle.
Yeah.
This maybe doesn't happen. Now, those ones who are doing contact tracing and picking out those who are suspected of COVID-19, basically assisting the medical workers and the front line, should also be getting a lot more of PPEs.
Yeah.
Right? Not just standing there and saying you and going, but wearing the same PPE kit as the medics.
Yeah.
We don't see this happening.
Nope.
Nope.
So they're battling their own COVID-19 fears in terms of, rounding people up every now and then.
Yep.
We have a story here talking about, some police are even now scared to take in offenders into the cells or whatever, because they don't know what their status might be. So there's a lot of push and pull here. And it's interesting because this is a spot check from Nakuru, but then as they go into other cities, Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, it seems to be the same thing.
Maybe because here, law enforcement has to still go on. But I think we can reduce some of these risks that we expose the police to by adopting different ways of contact tracing and quarantine. And for me, the best is home-based quarantine, where you, instead of sending the police in, you send in your community health volunteers, your community health workers, to sort of take care of a certain homestead which you have identified to have people, and you contain people in that particular facility. Because community health volunteers are trained. They'll be well kitted, they'll have PPE, so they'll be able to, know what to do. That way you will remove a certain number of police who would have otherwise been exposed to some of these people without the proper training. And then now just leave the police to actually take care of the offenders, of people who are just breaking the law, because really the law has not taken a backseat from COVID.
Right.
Then page 6, still on the coronavirus, we have creative Kenyans who have developed ideas to combat the pandemic. At least 6 manufacturers have so far submitted prototype ventilators to the Kenya Bureau of Standards, even as the body release specifications for this and personal protective equipment being manufactured locally. So I think this is just a group of Kenyans who have, thought of getting local solutions for this global problem. And we have some brothers, Eric Sabulei, who's 24, a nurse, and his younger brother, Felix Sabulei, 20, a technology enthusiast, who came up with an idea to make simple, portable, and cheap ventilator. And I think this one, we even covered it on TV and showed actually how it works.
It was ventilating.
Yes. It was helping somebody to breathe. Then we have an automated hand washer. This is by an engineer in Malindi who has developed an automated hand washer to minimize direct contact with soap and water containers. So you step on it, then it gives you your soap and water, and you can clean, so you don't have to touch the surfaces, because those highly touchable surfaces are the ones which are likely to have the virus.
Some of these things, you see them, they're covered in the news, and you think, how can we actually upscale some of this? How can we upscale this? How can we, if they've been taken to KEBS, how long would it take for KEBS to verify and to endorse some of these inventions?
This is the thing, because I think for the longest time we have the conversation and saying the government should do this. What the government is supposed to do is provide a conducive environment where things like this can then thrive. So do we need just 3 days at KBS as opposed to 10 weeks? Absolutely. Do we need a reduction on taxes? Absolutely. That's what you do by creating an environment.
Let's discuss this in the next hour, also looking at the other issues in the healthcare system and how we are addressing COVID-19. Coming up to 7 o'clock. Today's proverb: if a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Now, let's also talk about a child who's kicked away from the table of kings. What's happened? Soiled their mouth? Soiled their shirt? Maybe. Or ate with their mouth open.
Yeah, they were talking when people were eating.
Or they were talking when people were eating. Misbehaved at the table. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Clogged right around Mombasa Road, just a little bit though. We don't have much to report about what is going on our roads today. It seems that not many have popped out this morning. We'll keep a look at what is going on in different parts of the country, but for now, Ikosawa, as it's normally said. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. But for now, it looks good. You'll be able to get where you're going in good time this morning. It is Tuesday. I guess the early week traffic has not yet started, and we're not far enough into the week to get those numbers up. So for now, you'll be able to get where you're going good. Give us a call or send us a message, and we'll be able to spread information about what you might see later on.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain
is also
times.
Kenya's biggest conversation. We are in Malindi, 97.7, Nyeri, 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 Nakuru, 102.5 Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. We are live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. Watch us on Facebook, SpiceFMKE. Watch us on Twitter, SpiceFMKE. Or you can choose to watch us on YouTube. Our channel is SpiceFMKE. Join the conversation as well. SpiceFMKE on Instagram. 0719 012 600. Keep it right here because this time we're going to discuss other issues around the healthcare system and how we're fighting COVID-19, looking locally and regionally and across the globe. At 8 o'clock, we'll be talking about this messy divorce. That's going to be a messy divorce. And at 9 o'clock, we'll be speaking to the Cabinet Secretary for Health, the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, EGH, Chair of the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19. We'll be asking a number of questions. If you've got any question that you'd like the CS to answer, please tweet us at SpiceFMKE. And also you can ask the same question on Facebook, SpiceFMKE. All right? So we're looking at these inventions by brilliant Kenyans.
Yeah. So
Some
we have,
of them...
let's just get to this. This one is a contact tracing app. Remember, contact tracing is key to being able to contain, actually identify everyone and contain the disease and stop further spread of the virus. So Elfas Kajira, an Android developer, consultant, and part-time lecturer at Strathmore University, came up with a contact tracing app after studying how South Korea was handling the pandemic using technology. Remember, South Korea is one of those countries which we have really praised from how we've praised because of how they've handled their whole coronavirus, that they had a super spreader, but within no time they were able to contain it.
Yep.
So he has this app that he just got curious to try it and he started working on it. So it connects phones with each other without any interaction between the individuals or exchange of details. So he says the phones interact with each other in the background anonymously. So if you have the app on your phone, and I also have it, and we are about 1.5 meters apart, our phones will exchange an anonymous key. If you have the app and you test positive at a health facility and you wish to share with possible contacts, the facility will give you a code that you can use as a verification for you to upload your key to your server through the app so that others can get a notification that they came into contact with someone who tested positive. So I think this is quite important because then I'll be able to know, so-and-so who was near me tested positive. So you're able to even just quarantine yourself early enough. Yep.
This we keep talking about ourselves about, Kenya being the Africa savannah, this Africa the Silicon savannah, how we are so advanced in mobile technology and techie. This is not the only one by Elfas Kajira. It's not the only solution that has been developed by Kenyans. I am sure you will talk to very many who have come up with very many other things that can do this, exactly this, contact tracing. This thing of saying, let's give billions to NIS so they can help contact tracing, we can also do the same by just inventing or investing in a thing like
millions.
An app like this by this guy at Strathmore University. Invest in him and tell him, roll it out. And he'll roll it out. And we make sure that we register the IP and everything, give him money. If you look at how even China, we've seen how China did its contact tracing and even mobilization of knowing exactly who has gone into quarantine, how they've stayed in quarantine, are they allowed to come out, just using a QR code on a phone. Everybody has a mobile phone. You have a QR code. Every time you go, you want to come into standard group, you scan your QR code. If it allows you, if you are in good status, it'll open. If you're not, it'll not. And
It will not.
these are solutions. I'm sure there are very many Kenyans who have this kind of solution. And this is a brilliant one.
It is.
It basically you have it on your phone and everybody has it on their phone. As long as I'm next to you, it'll leave a trace.
That's true.
That's true. It will help. And this is not the first app or mobile solution that has been done. There was one at the very beginning of COVID when we had, I think, 4 or 5 cases there, about less than 10. There was one on Matatu where once you enter the Matatu, you put in something so that in case anyone in that Matatu turns positive, then they are able to know everyone who was in that Matatu with that particular person. So the case that we are talking about in Machakos would have easily been traced. You wouldn't have to really worry about which Matatu he was in, who he met in what Matatu. It would have been possible to know it was Matatu, this registration number, this was the route, this is the other one he took, and all of those things.
You know what? Right now, even the way the government is actually doing contact tracing, they're still using mobile technology. They're using tech to do all this contact tracing and all. But why just keep it a government secret? Just support some of these inventions, innovations by Kenyan companies. And this is how we grow. This is what you're talking about, manufacturing and growing our economy. This is how you grow. Support these guys. Ensure that you put in all the proper security measures, because that's also important. Otherwise, you start now, maybe this app is able to go and dig up a lot more information from your phone than it was initially supposed to. So ensure you put in all these safeguards and then you go ahead. This other one by JQuat?
This other one by JQuat is by Karanja Kabini, a mechatronics engineer. So this is an automated solar-powered hand washing machine and a portable solar-powered ventilator that uses a 12-voltage battery. It can also use electricity. And I like this particular one because of solar power. I think for a continent which enjoys sun throughout the year, we underutilize solar energy so much. On Saturday, when we had the power blackout throughout the country, really, we should have had an alternative which is solar powered. So for an innovation that uses solar, for me, is practical, and it's something that can work through and through because we always have sun. Even when it's cloudy conditions, as Ndu will tell us, there's always some sun, as opposed to other people who have a few hours of sun. So it has a control panel, he says, that can vary the breathing rate, an operator that can increase or reduce the amount of oxygen, and it can be used by adults and children. The gadgets are light and therefore easy to transport. Then the automatic hand washing machine, on the other hand, senses one's hands and dispenses soap. It waits for about 15 seconds, then water starts running for the person to rinse hands. So it gives you 15 seconds to, lather your hand with soap as much as possible. Then the last one, though this one I don't think we can call it a new innovation because I've seen it for quite a long time. This is a simple hand washing device. It's an initiative dubbed Tippy Tap has come up. An initiative dubbed
Tippy Tap.
How many times can you say that quickly?
Tippy Tap has come up with a simple hand washing device now used in villages across the Nyanza region. With only a stick acting as a lever, ash drawn from their kitchens, soap and some sort of container, almost each household has erected the device in their compounds. And if you look at it, you sort of have your 5-liter, 3-liter container, you hang it somewhere, and then you lever it with a stick. Okay. I'm very bad at description, clearly. But if you buy the standard, you can see that picture there. So you just step on the stick, and then what happens is the container will just tilt.
Tip. The tap will tip.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is it.
That
Where
is
the
it.
tippy tapping comes in.
And then the tippy tap comes in. And then the reason I like this is, though public health people will tell you, ash is not good because it may be contaminated and whatnot. In areas where there's absolutely no soap, ash is actually an alternative to washing hands. Yeah.
So there you go. Even people in the village are innovating. And this shows you that there's a lot of information across the country and people are willing to fight COVID.
Exactly.
All right?
Exactly.
So this thing of being told that, Kenyans are not cooperating, Kenyans are not, let's not buy it. If a village can do this, and if there's no place that you will go and you don't find people basically doing those basics. I have a mask. It's uncomfortable when I'm alone. I lower it below my nose. And the logic here someone is using is... There's nobody near me.
I think what this clearly indicates that not just COVID, but that I think that if given the opportunities, if given the right environment within which to work with, I think Kenyans, I think citizens of countries are naturally inclined to fight whatever may come their way.
Yep.
And we're talking about insecurity. We're talking about sustainable food sources. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about famine. You would be I just looking at a report on floods and the things that without the help of government, for example, there are things that certain villages in the western part of the country have done to stop water from coming then towards their homestead. They didn't read a book in science to save their life. But there are certain things that they know. There are certain things that they can create and innovate based on the experiences that they have.
Yep.
And if you want to look at the growth and development of countries, it's not just about what you go read in a book. It's also about what you're able to harness from the people that they can actually use. Now, with the machine, the thing is that governments should be using the machinery of finance and a spread that they have then to tap these resources from the people for the betterment of the country. So again, we see an opportunity that COVID brings to show that an innovative people rest within the boundaries of this country, and that you can build on that to make the country better as we go along. COVID has brought out so many things, from ventilators to masks to hand washing to all sorts of things.
Yeah.
These are tangible things that people can use, but the unseen reality is that you have a people who can actually boost the profile of this country if you make the condition right. And the condition right in a lot of cases is providing them maybe with the capital that they need. Are there other things that you can do to help? We've talked about reducing taxes. We've talked about making the processes easier so that somebody can go in and do business.
Creating some special economic zones
absolutely.
for
It
light
can be
industries,
done.
for
Yes.
instance.
Yeah.
All these guys at JKUAT, this is a mechatronics engineer. There are very many different types of engineers who are studying at JKUAT, at Nairobi University, at KU. And when they come out of university, where do they end up? Can you imagine if we just had a place where they'd go, put in their innovation, come up with stuff, you're able to supply to local manufacturers. And local manufacturer does not need to import gigantic equipment, which can just be made here locally. Create a special economic zone for such. We have Kariobangi Light Industries, an initiative of the government for a long time. But it was left to collapse. Now Kariobangi Light Industries has become Kariobangi Sewerage Village, has become everything else. When you think about Kariobangi, you're just thinking of the sewer village. Instead of thinking of such as a place where we could be innovating. It's a wake-up call for all of us. For some stuff that needs to be done. And maybe when we get to speak to the CS, well, we have too many questions to ask.
We have,
we will look for the CS for industrialization and trade, Betty Maina, and she's the one who can answer some of these questions.
But you realize this is an opportunity for this big word that governments drop all the time, multi-sectoral approach to things. So as much as the ball is in the court of the industrialization CS, every other CS is involved. If you're talking about solar-powered anything, energy is there. If you're talking about, because all of these innovations are towards health, you're talking about CS health, CS industrialization, you're talking about ICT, youth, all of these people, and ultimately national treasury. So in my opinion, any cabinet secretary should be able to address this.
Pick it up and run
Pick
with
it up and run with it, and make sure you actually do that multi-sectoral approach by bringing in the other sectors.
True.
It doesn't hurt if ICT takes a lead.
No.
It doesn't hurt if industrialization takes a lead. It doesn't hurt if treasury takes a lead and brings in everyone else to support this youth, because these are young people. Imagine what this would do
in a good
if
situation.
this innovation,
it will not hurt, but in reality, it hurts. It hurts if the Ministry of Youth, ICT, Innovation and Youth is not the one that is taking a lead on this, and the Ministry of Industrialization is the one that's taking a lead on this. The people in Innovation and Youth, the State Department for Innovation and Youth will tell you, sasa yo wamechukua sasa wafanye.
Yeah, I hear you saying it's a win-win, Mercy, but this is within the same
it's where the money
government
goes.
where you have individuals fighting each other without realizing that, you know what, if we actually get this thing to work, we could all benefit, right?
Yeah.
But how many people actually take it and say, okay, let's work together and let this thing work so that we can all benefit as a whole?
And they need to be
How often
brought.
does that
They need to
happen?
be whipped together all the time. Create a multi-sectoral committee, multi-agency task force, all the time.
That.
16 minutes after 7. Let's take a look at weather. Good morning.
Coming up in Nairobi this morning, we are going to see partly cloudy conditions for most parts of the day, and chances of rain quite high, highs of 24. We'll see highs of 23 in Nyeri today. Mostly cloudy conditions right now, but the rain will come down. In Nakuru at 15 degrees, it's partly cloudy, highs of 24 with the rain this afternoon. Okay, why did we not look at Eldoret? Let's do that right now. In Eldoret, it seems to be mostly cloudy this morning at 14 degrees. The chance of rain is quite high today, and we will then see highs of 23 and lows of 12. And in Mombasa, mostly cloudy conditions at 25 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 25 with chances of rain. 26 degrees in Malindi and cloudy conditions. Rain is going to come in later with highs of 28 and lows of 20. Into Kampala at 21 degrees, cloudy conditions with thunderstorms expected later. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is cloudy this morning at 24 degrees. Rain expected in the afternoon, then with highs of 30 and lows of 23. In Johannesburg, it's clear and sunny all through. We will see highs of 21 and lows of 8. And finally, for now in Lagos at 26 degrees, clear skies all through, highs of 32, 33 and lows of 26.
Situation on Kenya's biggest conversation at 19 minutes past 7. And, we're taking a look at how we are fighting COVID-19, all the measures that the government is taking to fight COVID-19. Now, we looked at the innovations. Hospitals are set to test all new patients for COVID.
I don't know why we didn't do this from the beginning.
What does that mean?
It means everyone walking into a facility that is getting admitted will get tested for COVID.
But you don't get the results immediately.
At admission?
At admission. It takes about 24 hours.
Yeah. So what happens if I'm coming into hospital, for example, if it's
outpatient?
Hold on. So for 24
this is for
hours.
Inpatient.
But you're coming in to be admitted.
Yes, you're getting
right?
admitted.
At admission.
Because we know that people with other pre-existing conditions, you're likely to be admitted because you have a pre-existing condition or something has happened
Right.
to you that really needs you to be hospitalized.
Yeah.
So it's good to know your COVID status, one, for your own sake, and two, for the sake of others.
Sure, but
early
I,
enough.
what I'm asking in this case is, I come into, and we've seen this many times, Dr. I come into hospital with an issue, and then the doctor decides, you know what, I need to monitor you, so I'm going to admit you, right? So if a test result takes 24 hours to come in, am I going to be in isolation in a room waiting for those results? Will they not admit me? Will they tell me to go home and come back?
No. You'll still get admitted for what took you to
Into the
admission,
ward.
into the ward for admission. And remember, right now, everyone in hospital, whether you're admitted, whether you're visiting, anyone has a mask on. All the healthcare staff have their masks on, and at least for them, at the bare minimum, it's a surgical mask. So everyone, at some point, the patient and the healthcare worker has some protective something around them. And the healthcare workers are handling you with plus gloves.
Right.
Also. So the point here is to pick out anyone who would have COVID. Remember that we've had cases of people who've been admitted, they've died, and then it's at postmortem that they found out that they had COVID because of how their lungs were looking like. And they're like, okay, we think this was COVID. And then when they take the samples and they swab and they actually do a posthumous diagnosis of COVID. So it's to avoid that, because what that means is this person along that chain of hospital care and hospital admission was not picked out.
Yeah.
So then you don't know if you could have avoided that death or if you could have done anything different. Because if you don't know, you can't really respond the way you're supposed to respond. Yeah, so this is the point. So for me, it is a plus, because everyone now getting admitted will know their status. By the time you're leaving hospital, you know that you had COVID or not. But now the tricky part is now here is I see COVID test like a certificate of good conduct. You're only COVID-free as at now.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you will not get it tomorrow, but it's a good start. Now, for the outpatients, I remember this one, the Acting Director General Health, Dr. Amoth, said anyone coming in with upper respiratory symptoms or any respiratory symptoms, whether you're having a cough, if you're asthmatic or you have TB, any chronic pulmonary disease, anything, as long as you have respiratory symptoms and are going into hospital, will get tested. Because we do not know, because now we have community transmission, and from the numbers that we are seeing, it's evident that there's community transmission. We do not know whether your symptoms are because of COVID or because of something else. So you'll get tested just to know. Now, the other people who otherwise do not have any other symptoms, maybe you're going for vaccination, maybe you're going for your antenatal checkup, are getting screened. Now, I think it's important for people to realize that screening and testing are different, because I still get questions about that, this testing of people using thermometer should stop. It is screening, because the commonest symptom that people have been presenting with, and I'll give you what percentage of people that is shortly, has been people presenting with fever. So those thermometer checks are just to pick out people who would have fever. 61% fever is in 61% of the people who are symptomatic. So the temperature check is just to pick out anyone who would have fever. So if you're going into any hospital, they'll take a temperature check. And then the other thing they're asking is, obviously, if you have any of these other symptoms, and if you've come in contact with somebody who's had COVID, or if you're in those epicenters, the small epicenters we're talking about, could be Mombasa, Old Town, Eastleigh, Kawangware, if you're a healthcare worker, so that they're able to pick out early these symptoms. So this is, in my opinion, heightened surveillance, heightened response, which is 60 days late. But
when is it going to start? Because even the story says soon. Dr. Amoth said soon. When is it going to start? What do they need to put in place so that when you go to every healthcare center, you have for admission? You see, it's not admission; is just hospitals. So when you're going to hospital for admission, then you're able to get this test. What do they need to put in place?
I think now we have the chain of laboratory facilities that are testing. So in terms of laboratory testing, we have them across the country, all the way from Busia, Kisumu, Kericho, Nairobi, and it's networked. That's one. Two
Both
is now
public and private, or just public?
These are public. These are public. These are the KEMRI facilities across the country. Then two, which is where we have been failing, and we'll probably ask the CS to tell us why and if they've done anything about it, is the logistics of that chain logistics between getting the sample from the patient and taking it to the laboratory, because the laboratory process is well laid out, it is straightforward. But here you hear, oh, we do not have swabbing kits, we don't have those swabs, we don't have anyone to come and take the swab, to come and swab you.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are some of the things. We don't have a virus transport media to take the swab sample to the lab. So there have been a lot of small issues that shouldn't actually happen. So if those are sorted out, that you know every hospital has swabs, there's somebody or the healthcare workers have been trained to actually take that swab and put it in a virus transport media, then the other process is taken to the laboratory.
Okay.
The laboratory communicating the results is just electronic. Really, that doesn't take a lot
So
of
in other words,
infrastructure.
what you're saying is before we get this thing running, will be in June somewhere or July. It'll
Take a while,
start,
but that's
there'll be
clear.
teething problems, as the government likes to call them. There'll be teething problems, learning here and there. It'll be working in some hospital, in some other hospitals, it will not be working until someday it'll work. Or maybe
It's-
Or I would just join the others in the
in the queue.
idea.
Of-
No, right,
idea-
the
Just be
idea
an
cemetery.
idea,
unfortunately.
an idea.
The-
So basically, the whole idea here is when you're getting admitted for whatever cause,
Yeah.
whatever kind of admission you, whenever you're getting admitted, one of the things that is going to happen to you is you get tested for COVID-19.
Yes.
And then the results come, and then the medics will know how to treat you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, if you start deteriorating, they can also see it's COVID that is pushing this and,
Yeah.
and the other. It's a good thing.
It's a good
Private
thing.
hospitals, same.
Yes. So the only private hospital that I know is doing this for all its admitted patients is Aga Khan University Hospital. Anyone getting admitted there has a mandatory COVID test, which is at the cost of the hospital. That's what they said.
Free.
Free. The hospital says
So it's free.
it's free.
Okay.
If you are getting admitted,
Those are the words that you want to hear.
Yeah,
Yes.
the COVID-19 test is free.
if
Whether the
you
hospital
are
has
getting
been-
admitted,
There's a caveat.
Yeah,
if
when
you are
you're
getting admitted,
yes,
so
yes.
everyone getting admitted gets a COVID test done,
Mhm.
and you get your results within 24 hours. Also,
Okay.
yeah.
Now comes in the complication of insurance. All right. So you're getting admitted, you test positive for COVID. Does that mean that insurance kicks in and starts telling you, you know what, you had COVID anyway, whether you've been admitted for whatever else,
Yeah.
you had broken a leg, you're just here, you're being admitted, or you've suffered burns, but you had tested positive for COVID. Now, shauri yako.
No, I don't think so, because by the time you're getting admitted, the insurance gives a pre-authorization, and their pre-authorization is based on why you're getting admitted. Let's say you've broken a leg. Burns are very painful. Let's say you've broken a leg and you're getting fixed. So that is what they pre-authorized. If they find that COVID happened along the way, then that can be, you can bill that separately and have that fight later.
Which bill is going to be given separate? There's no
The one
treatment
for
for COVID.
COVID.
But you're not treating
The
them.
bed.
But you're not treating COVID.
Yeah. So
So you will just be billed for your leg. I think so.
it's
I
an
don't know.
important conversation to have with insurers, especially
Insurance.
the Insurance Regulatory Authority, because this whole issue of paying for COVID,
It's
and you've taken
for
out
me,
insurance cover, and there's force majeure.
For me, the simple, okay, maybe not so simple, but the solution for paying for COVID is for government to foot that bill.
Wherever,
Government,
public,
whatever
private.
it is, because this is a global pandemic. It's a global issue.
Yeah.
And surely it shouldn't hurt government so much to put in money into covering COVID, because this issue of paying and not who's paying, who will not pay, how much is it, is the reason why our cases are still on the rise, because no one is willing to get tested, no one is willing to go into quarantine, no one is willing to go into isolation, because, I mean, who wants to be billed?
People's level of cooperation has basically dropped
because of that
because
cost.
I mean,
Yeah, 'cause
beyond dwindle.
I'm seeing just now that they're saying that they will, what is this? The COVID tests for the hoteliers has been slashed to 1,000 per person in government facilities. This from a standard price of 4,000. And I'm thinking, why was there even a price in the first place?
If you can afford to do the 1,000 now, you could have afforded it. You could have afforded to do it.
It's
Then-
it's a negotiation. We'll get to zero.
It should get to zero.
We will get there.
because-
It's an ongoing process. Start with 4,000. Let's see what they say.
But
Okay, so
really-
they're not coming. 2,000. Let's see what they say.
This is
Customer, uko na ngapi?
acha nikupe
Haya,
bei ya
kuja.
jioni.
Ya
Acha
jioni.
nikupe bei ya jioni. Unajua
Start
siku
working
mzima
already.
sijauza.
Kuja customer, unajua tu ni kuongea. Uko na ngapi? 7:30. Let's take a look at traffic. Good morning.
All right, both Thika and Mombasa Road are behaving very well this morning. Very little traffic on both of those roads as you get in and outbound. Waiyaki Way, there's no traffic at all, but there seems to be some pockets of traffic that's moving extremely slowly. That should speed up in just a short while. Apart from that, it looks pretty good wherever it is that you go. Don't forget that you need to be very careful, especially when you're applying those routes where we saw some issues yesterday. Looking into Jogo Road, trying to get to the City Stadium roundabout to take you a happy minute. But then after that, you will be on Easy Street. Spice of MKE, that's how to reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see and we'll spread the word as per how the day looks on the roads.
In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko and Dr. Mercy Korir. So, all workers in restaurants and eateries are now going to get those tests done at 1,000 shillings at government facilities.
That is what they have said. Remember, since last
I like
week.
how we all take this. We take everything now.
The government says.
With a gallon of salt.
Exactly.
It's like,
Remember last week, the CS himself says now quarantine will
Yes,
be at
free.
government cost. Then what happened?
Who's paying?
Who's paying?
You land someone. Nani ya kulipia?
So here they're saying it will be one. They have said,
Yeah.
government has said it will
Yeah.
be 1,000. So let's wait and see. And then
And how long would it take? So you go in there, let's say you've sent your staff for these tests. You pay 1,000 shillings per person. How long should you wait for the results to come out?
I think we just call it 24 hours.
So the 24 hours.
Yeah,
And
24
also,
hours.
the certificate is still a 14 cycle validity.
Of
So
course,
every 14
of course.
days, you have to go and get retested if you're working at a restaurant.
Ideally. Because it's a certificate of good conduct. You
Yeah.
are only as free as at today,
yeah, where we are now.
where we are now.
There
Why
was
are we
some-
playing these games? Okay, ask before I
No,
come.
I'm just saying there was some hue and cry last week, of course, from owners of these establishments saying this, you know what, okay, if we're going to do a test that would cost upwards of 5,000, 6,000 shillings, and I have 20 staff in my employ, how on earth am I going to do that? I'm trying to open to look for money, and then I'm going to be asked essentially to spend 120,
20K every 14 days.
150,000 shillings. 150,000 shillings every 14 days. How? I might as well stay closed. There's no
Exactly.
point for me to open. And then you want to present some hope to people that, okay, you can do it for $1,000, right? Okay, maybe I can make this money in a week or 2 weeks to be able to test again. But then the question is it actually going to happen? Why do we always have to be in that state of asking ourselves, is it actually going to happen? Or is it something somebody just said to make everybody feel good for a moment? Is it going to happen? Where do they go? Who does this? At the time when this announcement is being made, that's why communication is so key. At the time when this announcement is being made, take it to the end. Now that we're making it 1,000 shillings, these are the establishments at which you may go and get tests done for your staff. We expect you to do this every 2 weeks. We will get you the results for these tests that you've done within 24 hours. After that, you will either be presented with a chip or a certificate that states that your staff in this establishment have received this test and you are okay to continue with business.
Should be individualized per staff.
That exactly.
Because you can take 5 staff for testing.
We'll present each of
and then 10
with your
10
results
staff are working.
comes your certificate, right?
But remember,
I mean,
in that establishment, for example, if you have 10 staff, 1 tests positive, you're closed.
Yep.
Unless you start hiring people tomorrow.
You're closed.
Yep.
And then this whole issue of paying, not paying, I think restaurant or hoteliers have seen when they were just doing business has been hit everywhere badly.
Yeah.
Without testing, you can still do your takeaway services.
Yeah.
At no cost of testing. Same staff, same everything. Now that you need people to come and sit in your hotels, you need to test. Why not just continue with takeaway services?
The takeaway service.
Because that will be cheaper at the end of the day because there's no cost to it.
Is there justification? Why are we really playing around with that idea? Because it appears like, the government could be thinking, look, many of these industries have closed down. Maybe this is one of the simple ones, the easiest ones to reopen. But also you're talking about one that allows everybody to come in. If you're talking about now the investment of testing staff, the risk of ensuring that all these staff, once they've gotten tested, they still remain negative, even for those 14 days before they go and get retested, and the risk of people coming in and observing social distance, the physical distancing, there are too many risks at play. Also, looking at people, somebody could be just an unscrupulous trader who decides, I'm going to take my staff for testing, one shift, and I mix them up. So people who are working here, some have tested negative, some have not undergone any kind of test. But because I need money to come in, so let's just operate as if. Too many risks at play here.
And this risk could be dire. This risk could be dire because this, as you rightly said, this staff, they can be tested today and they're negative. But at the end of the day, they're boarding that matatu where somebody else has tested positive.
Yep.
They're going back to their estates where somebody else has tested positive, So there are so many other places where they can get this virus. And then they'll come to the place of work. They'll interact with people, they'll serve. And then, this is a service industry. I mean, if I'm bringing you your plate, I have to hold it. I'm not going to have a robot bring it to you. So their hands touching things here and there. I think it was Vox or one of those sites that did an experiment where somebody was given is it fluorescent? This something that lights up under UV light. It's fluorescent, right?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one person applied it on their hands. Then they went to serve their own food, like in a buffet setup. And by the time all 10 people were sitting down, somebody's walking cane was already contaminated. The serving spoons were contaminated.
Wow.
The chairs were contaminated. Like everyone, and there were just 10 people, everyone was contaminated. So yes, we have reduced social distancing and not, but you cannot do away with the fact that you have to use your hands.
But also, let's be fair. If we go with that argument, then we'll say, let's close down supermarkets, let's close down markets. Because if you imagine, so supermarkets, yes, are allowing people, you're trying to observe as much physical distancing as possible.
No. The
when you go into the
argument
till,
here is...
this person is holding your goods as they...
No. The argument here is do not make people pay for it. Let it be government cost.
You underpay. Me,
Yes.
I'm asking, why open?
Actually looking at the safety of it now.
Why open in the first place?
No, because it will be a way of being able to identify people who are positive, and you're able to isolate early enough before they become super spreaders. In your establishment of 10 people, if one person is positive, you'll quarantine them, you will look for all their contacts, you'll quarantine, you'll isolate this particular person who has tested positive for 14 days. So you'll be able to contain the situation early enough, as opposed to when you don't know and they still go about their business. So it is good. I support that this testing should happen. But what I do not support is having people, establishments pay, because they will not come and get tested. So at the end of the day, it will
Make
be
it free.
It will not serve the purpose which is meant to be. Let me give an example of healthcare workers. 34 healthcare workers have been exposed to the virus, and by last week, Amoth had said we'd had just slightly over 600 healthcare workers who would come to be tested. How many healthcare workers do we have in this country? There are about 30,000 or so. If you add the nurse. Actually, let's say 50,000, because nurses are in their 20,000, the clinical officers in 10,000. So let's say 50,000, and you've only tested 600, and all of these people are still essential services. They are still working. What does that mean? It means people who are at high risk of getting this virus are still walking around doing their own other things because of what the consequences of testing are. Where you'll get tested. If you turn positive, you're thrown in somewhere. Your family is picked up and quarantined somewhere where it is not conducive. So people would rather not get tested because of the consequences.
Maybe this is where then we should roll out the rapid tests.
So anyway, we'll ask the CS.
Look at other ways of doing testing. How is South Africa conducting its tests?
Everyone is still doing PCR testing because PCR, the antigen test that we are doing, identifies the presence of the virus.
Right.
So you're able to know who actively has the virus now. Whether it is still contagious or not is a whole other discussion. But you're able to find out that this person has DNA of the virus, this person has the virus. Now, the rapid test kit, the $1 that we saw from Senegal and other rapid testing kits, and I think I've seen one of Lancet has it here, just tells you who has been infected previously with the virus. It doesn't tell you if they currently have that virus, because they're just antibodies that say so-and-so had this infection before. We're able to find out these antibodies. So in terms of being able to tell you where active infection is, the rapid test kit that identifies the antibodies is not ideal.
So could that
explain? Its purpose is in being able to tell you who is immune in your community or in your environment, so that you're able to weigh and see, can we open up? Can we let people go about their duties and hope that they cannot get reinfected? So that's the only thing it will tell you. But in terms of who actively has the virus and can spread it, it doesn't tell you.
So then there are two things here. If you're looking at that rapid test where it says who may have had it before, that could explain the reasons why then you see some countries opening up. On the other hand, it could also explain then why a country like Kenya is not doing as much in terms of testing, because this is obviously a more, if I could say, complete test where you can see the individual that you're testing at that point. Do they actually have this disease now? Right? Do they actually have this virus now? And because it's more complete, that could be the reason why you're not doing so many in a day. Is it? Or no?
No. If you look at Uganda, I'll not even go to South Africa. Uganda is doing more tests than us.
The PCR test?
The PCR test.
Okay.
They're doing more tests than us. What are they doing differently? Our issues has been the logistics that I talked about, or that we don't have swab kits. The word has disappeared today. We don't have those swabs. Yeah. And don't, like, for example, children are not being tested as much because the swabs that we have are adult size.
Okay.
We do not have the right ones for children. So this adult size one will traumatize the child. So that limits the testing that you can do. So our testing now is being handicapped more by logistics and other issues as opposed to the capacity for us to test. So that's one. So if we had addressed that, then you can comfortably move to rapid testing. The antibody testing.
Yeah.
I remember the antibody test, they're not as accurate. Even the PCR test has, I think it's an 84 or 90% accuracy.
Accuracy rate.
So these other ones are even low, some to as low as 30%. So you want to put in effort and resources where you know your chances of success are higher, and where the information you get will be useful. Not like in being able to know who actively has the disease so that you can actively isolate. The principle really is test, identify, isolate, and quarantine.
So when South Africa is doing, I'm seeing here, it's doing, by Financial Times, an article, it's doing 10,000 tests a day, per day. These are PCR tests.
Yes.
10,000 a day. And they're also using community health workers to do screening as well and all. 10,000 a day. If they're able to do this, what is it that they have? Is it the same kit that we have? Is it the same model?
Same things.
I don't even think it's, in this case, I don't think it's about the kit. I think that you would just look at their system and the way in which they've been able to organize things, then allows them to do this. Because they're working across board, right? They're not just working in one part of the country. And they're using the systems that they have. Using health workers around the country to get either calls for mass testing, or they're making sure that the centers for testing are actually meeting their daily capacity to test. If not meeting the threshold, are coming very close. So saying that we have a capacity to test 5,000 in this particular center, we're actually making sure that you're churning out what the center has a capacity to do.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, we have a capacity to test 13,000 around the country, but then we're rolling out less than a tenth of that per day, which doesn't make sense. Because this is the thing. You want to test as many as possible because you want, the ideal situation is that you want to know the kind of numbers that you're dealing with. Now, because we already know that the majority of these cases are asymptomatic, it shouldn't be a source of fear if you have those high numbers. It shouldn't really be a fear.
Yeah.
The fear factor comes in when you have a high number of people dying vis-a-vis the numbers of people that you have found, because then you're not able to keep up and offer the right kind of treatment, and unfortunately because of pre-existing conditions they unfortunately might lose life. But because you know that already people don't present symptoms, as it were, the high numbers helps in this case, because then it helps you to stop the spread and also to stop the infection to people who then may be vulnerable to death because of this. So you actually want the numbers. And I've been thinking about it recently, and I said, you know what? It could be a strategy, unfortunately, because maybe people don't want these high numbers, high rates of infection, because then it means you're going to have to do a little bit more work to make sure that people don't get sick.
To isolate and do all those things.
It's a little more work. And from what you've read, they've engaged the community health.
That's the network that they're using.
It is. Kenya, we have at least, I think, 60,000 plus that have been sensitized on COVID. So if you engage that 60,000 number of people to just go out and swab and, do, because it's a lot of groundwork for you to go to every household and whatnot. And these people, they live in the community.
It's a door-to-door
They know
thing.
who is who. They will know who has gotten infected. They should not leave their house, and they will ensure. Because testing is just one part. The other harder part is in isolation and quarantine. The two things we have messed all through.
And South Africa has lockdown. Isolation and quarantine lockdown.
And we see that they've extended that
indoors.
And they've extended to the 31st of May.
Yep.
As of yesterday, they said, okay, well, clearly we have a lot more work to do. Let's give ourselves another 2 weeks, guys. And let's see what we can do.
So
12 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let's take a short break and come back, and this conversation continues. You can join the conversation 0719 012 600.
Spice up your life.
10 to 8. 012-600. Also, if you'd like to pose a question to CS Mutahi Kagwe, who will be joining us at 9 o'clock, you can post that on Twitter at SpiceFMKE, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, and SpiceFMKE as well on Instagram. So, South African case, and coming back to Kenya, and why is it that when we are not able to do as many tests?
I think during the break you are saying that probably we do not want to test as much because of quarantine and isolation. We do not have to quarantine in a health facility.
Yeah.
You do not have to isolate in a health facility.
And this is
At the end of the day, everyone retreats to a house somewhere. So here, the people who should get government mandatory quarantine or government mandatory isolation should be people who would otherwise not be able to isolate or quarantine at home.
Yep.
If you live 5 of you in a one-roomed house, really, the best would be to get a better isolation facility for that family. If in a household you have several vulnerable people, whether they are elderly because people live with their elderly parents or somebody with a pre-existing condition, then that's somebody whom you may want to isolate separately or quarantine separately. So there are those protocols or guidelines or to who will qualify for home-based care, who will not qualify for that. And here, this will remove the headache of, we have so many people, what do we do? And then remember, 77% of your people are asymptomatic. They do not have symptoms. Are these people that you want to occupy bed space in a facility?
No.
And if not, you don't have enough.
And you don't have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just rethinking the strategy. And if I were the CS, this would have been the time to rethink that strategy. And we've been asking them in the pressers, Amoth and team, everyone, is this strategy sustainable? When you start having thousands and thousands of cases, is your strategy sustainable?
I think another thing, sometimes, and look, we see some of the best systems in the world doing it. There is nothing wrong with rethinking something. If you started out with a plan, you go down the road and you realize, all right, wait a minute, this is not working for me. It's not getting me to where I want to go. There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a back step and saying, maybe we should change this a little bit. Do we need to tweak something here and there to make sure we get a better result? It doesn't show any sign of weakness. If you ask me, it shows everything about strength to say that we realize with what we have at the moment, this is not working. Let's change it. Let's reroute and see, can we go in a different direction to eventually get where we're going? And I think oftentimes we say, no, this is what we said we're going to do, and we are going to stick to this thing, come hell, high water, we are staying here. I don't think it's necessary.
Because you're going to accuse your own government of flip-flopping. Today,
No. But you see, Eric, we are in a fluid situation. Things change every day.
Still changing
Like
every day on this.
tomorrow, who knows? By the end of today, scientists may come out and say, this thing is actually sexually transmitted. You will have to change your strategy. If they come and say this thing is airborne, you will have to change your strategy. So we are in a fluid situation. And in such a fluid situation, what we should do is look at our own data. What is this data telling us? What information are we gathering from it so that we are able to adjust and modify our strategy according to what we are getting? Because you may find that we are applying a strategy that has worked for another country here.
And it may not be working here.
It may not be working here because your own data that you've gathered.
Maybe that's what the government is actually doing. Maybe the government is basically working with its situation here, knowing that this is Kenya. Starting from the very beginning, are we locking down? No, we're not locking down. We're just asking people to observe these measures. Are we going to lock down a city? Yes, we shall lock down an entire metropolis and say nobody comes in, nobody goes out.
But that is not a lockdown.
People within can still walk around.
People within are still spreading the virus during the day and limiting spread during the night.
And then you realize where the hotspot is and you say, lock down that hotspot. Let people stay within that lockspot. That hotspot.
It could be, it's okay.
A lockspot, right?
Sure.
let the people stay there. Maybe this is what the government is working on a daily basis. Those are the decisions that it keeps making. We are going to force you to pay for your quarantine. No. We are going to help you pay for your quarantine.
They've changed the
Change of
changed.
strategy. Yeah, we're going to have you fill out Ebola forms at the airport, and you're going to fill a stay-at-home form at the airport.
Stay at
Still
home.
going
And-
to
and
government
still-
mandated
yeah,
quarantine.
Government
changing.
mandated. No. I think we knew at the very beginning, we knew the strategies that worked.
Yeah.
We knew a lockdown worked. We knew. We saw Uganda do that. We knew that testing, isolating, quarantine works. We botched it. We knew the things that worked. Now, when we have community spread, when we have community transmission that we are not able to put our hands on or get a hold of, is when now we want to quickly start doing these things.
And unfortunately,
the
some of
horse
these
has
things cannot
bolted.
be rushed. Yeah.
The
You
horse
can't
has
start
bolted.
rushing after. Like you keep saying, now we're chasing this thing.
Of course we are.
Other
Of
countries
course we
were
are.
chasing it, but for some reason they seem to have caught up with it and said, okay, now we've caught up with it, and now we can leave. We can start going
Yep.
towards
Yep.
leaving it behind, right? In this case, I think there's still many countries who are chasing. Kenya being
Us
one
guys
example.
are not interested in catching up.
I don't think so.
Why
I
do you
actually
wanna
agree
catch
with
up?
you on this.
Us guys are long distance runners. Those are sprinters. All right? So we have just started. We are on kilometer number 2. Goja tufike pale number 30. Alafu miguu ifunguke. Relax. Relax. We are
the
famed.
problem. That's the
long
problem.
That is
distance
the problem.
runners.
That's the problem.
You know,
Those
if-
Jamaicans,
You
those
have
guys
left
are
COVID
sprinters.
alone in the next
You know-
1
you know,
year.
I'm-
Those guys are
You still
sprinters.
say-
I'm
They'll
so
be
happy-
panting. They'll be.
I'm so happy, Eric, you're not an advisor. And
Right.
that's task force.
Because,
Because
hey, people would have
we've been in a worse
you know
situation
how
than
it would
this.
be. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, this would be worse.
No.
You're panicking too. Una panic. Relax. The government is in control. Colonel Oguna told you yesterday. The government is in control. It
So
knows
you are okay.
what we are doing. So we are okay. We are easy.
Eric.
Eric,
Yeah.
are you okay,
You're
with
okay
the
with the way
situation?
things are happening, and
Me,
you
I'm
say
COVID
there's no
negative
problem.
as far as I know.
So it's
Have
just
you
about
tested?
you.
I've tested myself. I've touched my face. I have no temperature.
You didn't touch men.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Yeah,
that
and so
was,
you're done.
That's
and
all
you're
that
not
matters.
coughing.
And I'm not coughing.
You don't have any difficulty in breathing. You don't
Nope.
have.
Nope.
You're good.
And I'm maintaining physical distance. Yep. I'm wearing a mask as much as possible in public. Yeah.
You're washing your hands
I'm washing
with
my
soap and
hands.
water.
Yeah.
By the way, the sanitizers go.
And I'm using hand
You know, I've come to
sanitizers.
realize
That business kind of.
something happened to sanitize. There was a mad rush for sanitizers. All of a sudden,
It has
everyone
devolved.
is giving you soap and water.
It has
You're like,
devolved.
we should have started with soap and water
In
from
the
the
first
word.
place.
From the word.
Or when you go to public places now, you're getting soap and water.
Yeah. Hardly sanitizers.
It's expensive.
Of course.
Soap is cheaper.
We
have
said.
quickly realized
Yeah.
this.
We
This
said
would have
this.
been the cheaper option to start with previously, and say just use soap and water. Don't force yourself into some bougie habits that clearly you don't have. Wash your hands with soap and water. You'll be just fine.
Carry a hand sanitizer just when you have a long distance between you and soap and water.
Soap and
And
water.
soap and water.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that it's okay. Really, I do think it's even recommended to backtrack, because we're not talking about
Yeah.
backtrack for a month. It could be a couple of hours in a meeting. Backtrack and say, you know what? It seems that this strategy is not working. Let's see how we can change things a little bit and then go in that direction. And it's still okay. We say that if we're getting value for a couple of hours, we take that value for a couple of hours. Are we getting value for 2 weeks? Take that value for 2 weeks. But then you're able to make some and cross some major milestones as you move forward. Unfortunately, some of the things that are being done now should have been done 2 months ago.
60 days. Exactly 60
Exactly
days ago.
60 days ago
Exactly
should
60
have
days
been
ago.
done.
Look at what last week, towards the end of last week, Old Town was all chaos and problems. But now it's quiet because they went back and did the right thing. Engage your community leaders, engage your sheriffs.
Use the people.
Use the people there. And now it's quiet. And I hope it's actually truly quiet.
Yeah. And then there's more testing happening. Somebody has just texted and said, stop talking about South Africa. Those guys are not, they're advanced.
They're not in Africa.
Compare yourselves with Uganda and Tanzania and
Even the
Rwanda.
Uganda
that you're
is
saying
doing better than us.
than the one that you want to say Kenya is the big brother.
Uganda
is doing much better.
Uganda
What are
is
you
doing
talking about?
So those are better numbers. It's better than talking about 10,000 numbers a day. All right? and talk about a
What
total.
were the numbers that we saw coming out of Uganda with the testing that's
As of
being done?
yesterday, they'd done 50,000.
50,000 tests in a day?
And they
No,
had 100
total.
Total tests.
Total.
tests.
Yeah. Coming to the top of the hour, today's proverb is coming from the book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Basically, what you're saying is if you prepare and allow yourself to be well trained when you have the opportunity, you'll achieve a lot and be favored in due course. Give me right here in the next hour, we open up the political talk. You can call in 0719 012 600. Good morning, 8 o'clock.
Okay, it looks like most streets today, I don't know what it is about Tuesday, but empty. The only road that we see we have some problems with this morning is the Thika Super Highway, and it's packed. There's jam all the way from the Garden City going towards the Pangani Underpass and then to the Globe Cinema roundabout. It's crazy traffic on Thika Road today. Everywhere else, though, for some reason, there is no traffic whatsoever. Mombasa Road is also behaving very fairly today. It'll take you very few minutes to get from the SGR all the way to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then towards Langata Road or towards Uhuru Highway, whichever way you are going. So you'll be fine. No traffic, guys. It's fantastic. Not like what we saw a couple of days ago. Unless that changes, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
When you go to marry a woman, you do it in church, and you take vows.
That is
Before God
Jubilee
and
Vice
before
Chairman
man.
David Morales.
And you say, till
last
death do
night
you
to,
part.
KTN News.
When you then discover
Basically, he's saying
that
this
the relationship
fait accompli.
is no longer
This
tenable,
marriage is
people
over.
divorce.
The relationship
And
is, what do they
it might
say
not be the fault
in
of the
court?
husband. It might be the wife who is tanga-tangaing
We
all over
haven't
the
gone there
marketplace with the young boys.
This relationship basically is you cannot salvage it.
Irreconcilable differences.
Yes, you've gotten to that point of irreconcilable differences. This is what we are seeing in the marriage or union between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Samoei Arap Ruto. It has gotten to a point where one of them, being the one who considers himself the husband in this marriage, thinks that the wife in the marriage has gone tanga-tangaing with young boys.
Well, by all indications, this seems to be the case. And no sooner than had one carried the other over the threshold, she was already outside talking to people about what are we going to do next. You just got married, for crying out loud. Give it a minute for everything to settle in the house. Look at what's happening in the kitchen. Look at what's happening in the different parts of the house. Look at how the grass is growing in the backyard. Maybe we need to make a tweak here and there. The children that we now have brought into this relationship,
Yep.
we need to take care of them a little bit. Let's focus on that development. Let's focus on making sure that this marriage is going to bear us the fruits that we hope a long relation, at least 10 years of this marriage.
Let's look at how...
let's work it out. But then now you start jumping outside and start shouting. How are we going to nurture our relationship?
But you say
How did this marriage happen? It was
This
a marriage
marriage-
of convenience.
It was an arranged marriage.
this was an
Yeah.
arranged marriage.
Yes, it was.
People
So
were brought
why are you
together by
surprised
their
that it has
folks.
broken?
They stayed together, they got children, and then they attended the graduation of their last born child in 2017. Now the kids are out of the house. They were staying together just because of the
Something brought them together, and the thing that brought them together has left.
Yeah.
So it was only
It
natural
was
that
just
they
a
would
matter of
split.
time.
kids. They were in it just for the children. Now the children are grown.
Are the children, did they really develop the children the way they were supposed to develop them?
That's
It
not
seemed that-
that's immaterial.
It's material, my dear, because at some point it seemed like daddy was alone at home, trying to make sure that the house remained together. Mummy, in this case, was hopping about and talking to other people about bringing another daddy into the building.
Mommy was fending for the children. Maybe mommy also realized that the daddy is
I think
Absent.
I'm almost lost with this.
this marriage has had an absentee dad, probably according to mommy. And mommy
Mommy
thought,
said daddy was not around.
yeah,
Daddy says mommy was jumping around the place, tanga-tangaing,
All over.
and bringing other people into our relationship that, come on, we did this thing together, right? Let's finish it together.
No, but if you look at it, who brought in somebody else into the relationship?
or who went out into somebody else's house.
House. Anyway, this relationship was doomed the day it was conceived. It was just a matter of time. It was just a special purpose vehicle, an SPV, toward something, and whoever wanted has achieved, and so it's time to just look and go elsewhere. So in my opinion, it's a good thing. Let people go and grow their own wings and do their own things elsewhere. I mean, isn't this the story of Kenyan politics, where there are no permanent enemies, there are no permanent friends?
But why not stick together for a while, at least?
What for?
Because I've helped you achieve what you wanted to achieve. Now help me achieve what I wanted to achieve. We had agreed.
But
We had agreed that when we
people
come into this
breach
together,
contracts all the time. People break,
Like
like
you
if
said.
people break vows,
People went
really.
to church, solidified, stamped by the law of the
in the
land and
presence
heaven
of God,
and man.
And
And
man.
God himself, who created the heavens and the
Uh-huh.
earth,
And-
stamped it, approved. But people still divorce.
Yeah.
So,
So
what's the problem?
it's never that serious.
What did you call those differences?
irreconcilable.
Irreconcilable differences.
Those ones. We've tried, we've talked, we've looked under, we've tried to sort this thing out. We could not come to consensus. So,
Just
rather than
because the
staying-
man has decided to
rather
become
than staying-
philandering doesn't mean that he should divorce the wife number one. You can bring in wife number two. You can shake hands with wife number three.
Who will
whatever.
agree?
Whatever. But at least give some respect to nyumba kubwa. You know, that's what it's called. Nyumba kubwa. How's wife number one? Give them the proper respect.
give wife number one the proper
Yes.
respect. But when she's misbehaving,
And let everybody else come and understand that there is wife number one in this relationship. What is
but
it they
if it
talk
is-
about?
If it is
But
the wife
this is
number
a
one
divorce.
herself, if it is the wife number one herself who is going outside, who is going to respect her? Tell me in which even
Wife
if you
number
want to
one
look
is
traditionally
wife
and
number
see-
one is going out because she has noticed that the husband has gone to another woman. Husband is out there in the market shaking hands with any other woman who comes. He comes across. Neighbor's wife,
shaking her hand.
shaking hands with the neighbor's wife. Wife number one looks at it and thinks, okay, so what is it? So she gets busy. You know the way people just become busy. You become busy in a relationship. So you're busy. You're going to the market. You're moving from this market to the next. You're going to church. You've become so ingrained in church. You go from one church service to the next. Crusade here, crusade
preacher
there.
even.
Yeah, you become a preacher. Just because you're trying to get yourself, just stop thinking about the fact that your husband has become a philanderer. And then the same husband, instead of acknowledging and understanding that he is the one who started this whole shenanigans, he kicks you out. And in fact, he goes for wife number 3.
2.
3. There was number 1 who's now in the church. There's number 2 who was shaking hands in the market. Now there's number 3 who grows chicken somewhere.
So it's the husband's fault.
Husband's
You
fault.
agree? It's the husband's fault.
Husband
should not have brought second woman into the
No.
relationship. I still say at this point they didn't give this thing an opportunity to grow. Husband and wife should have looked at themselves and said, this thing that we have entered, how are we going to make it happen? I said the paint had not dried on the new door. Auntie was outside. Look. We can't.
Auntie needed to go out. There was too much smoke in the house. Keep telling the man,
in this case, the
let's
reason
not
for which
smoke in front of the children. Guys, there.
the reason
Puffing.
the reason why they came together in the first place had outlived its purpose, and so it was inevitable that they would have to go to divorce court. It was inevitable. This was going to happen anyway.
It was.
Happen.
Talking of smoke, there was. I think this is the season where past comments, public commentaries that this particular group or class of Kenyans have made are coming out to the fore. And there was one where the deputy president was in a church somewhere, and they were saying, when you ask for a job as a cook, kitisha kazi kama mpishi, you have to be ready for the smoke and the fire. Like there's no way you're going to be in a kitchen and there's smoke and fire. So you cannot get into the kitchen and then there's smoke and fire. You say now it's too hot or, there's too much smoke. So what we're saying is the house, yes, they were given that work, but the house has its challenges. So they will iron them out. And in my opinion, a divorce is part of ironing problems.
It's a way to solve an issue. If I find that there are certain things that you're doing which I do against the agreement that we had in the first place, Shebi, you said that we were going into this, how do they normally say, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, whatever we are going to face, we are going to do this thing together. We are going to respect each other till death do us part. This is the death now. Death has parted us. It is not. We are not able to do it anymore. Leave it. Come and be going. Thank you very much from the very beginning. And see, as they say, I'll take it traditional now.
This wife has been subjected to emotional
I
abuse.
said she didn't.
Serious emotional abuse.
Let me help you.
In front of people. We are going there.
She
We're standing
took
in front of
herself
people.
there.
And your husband
she
is saying,
was out talking about
if my wife comes
zurura
into your homes,
the husband that you were supposed to be paying respect to, because you entered into his home, you entered into his presidency, the one that you were supposed to be assisting. Before you even started to assist him, you were jumping all over the place talking about who you want to marry in the next 10 years before you even started doing any work.
But
the presidency that you were supposed to respect, it didn't happen.
Here, remember when they came in, they were equal partners. You remember the matching ties and suits, all the bromans.
And now you saw what we call in Nigeria, you saw anko. If you like, wear anko until you finish. You are still wearing, but at the end of the day,
your wife.
You are the wife. There's the presidency that you.
But they came in
respect.
as equal partners. I assuming that agreement that they did, by the time
Maybe
any relationship is public,
just because
maybe there was a misunderstanding of what equal
just because you've attended Mercy's wedding wearing the same kitenge outfit,
it doesn't mean we're the same. No, it doesn't mean that we're the same. The office of the presidency was supposed to be respected. There's certain things that you are the deputy. What does it mean? You deputize. Where I go, you go. What I say, we do. What we agree on, we do. But it was clear that the split was there because somebody was looking for where he was going to place himself in the next 10 years. From the beginning. Wait now, let the paint on the walls even set. And that was the problem. Because you already jumped, and I keep saying it, you're already jumping outside instead of allowing it to cool down first. Who's to say if you had not relaxed, they would have actually said, truly, we did something good together. Okay. Now, I hand over the mantle to you. But the opportunity was not given. Opportunity was not given. And that disrespect that they talk about blatantly. He didn't hide it outside all the time.
What if this relationship has more than two people and you have the in-laws from the other side working towards, pushing you away? Because remember, in any relationship, it's not just the two people, there's the entire family. So maybe the in-laws on either side are like, no, we do not want this relationship. So they'll come and tell one side something. This one will come and tell one side something. And eventually they just split you. So
they come and torture you.
What if the in-laws in-laws
It's the
are the
in-laws
ones
who
who
are coming
are
to tell the husband. You know, she's out there talking to other. She's not out there talking. She's actually out there talking about how your marriage is working well, teaching people how to survive in a marriage. She's actually going there being a marriage counselor. And then this person comes and tells the husband, you know, she's going there talking about how she's the one who wears the pants in this relationship. No. She's taking the experience of this good relationship out there.
Oh, really?
She's preaching about it out there. She is going out there saying, look, together as a couple, we've been able to raise children. These children include electricity. We've been able to raise a child called electricity, rural electrification. We've been able to raise a child called roads and infrastructure. We've been able to raise a child called SGR, and these kids are doing very well.
And we promise you will raise some more children,
called
even in making sure stadia around the country. And in the next 6 months, we would have delivered this baby.
Yes.
That they were saying together.
That's what they say together.
They're saying together when this one is pregnant. You know, this baby, in the next 6 months, it's called stadia.
Then the other one picks up the next
one. Picks up
about it.
Yeah. So the wife is out there basically just extolling the virtues of a good marriage, and she's giving her own marriage as an example. The husband does not want the wife going to talk about how they're good, how well their marriage is faring, and the husband is basically being incited by in-laws, like Dr. Marcy is saying.
This other one, she also
at that time, those in-laws are finding this husband. She
carried her market woman
canoodling with another one.
Young market woman flocking about her, telling her all sorts of things and shouting to other people in the market, talking about this one marriage. Instead of them to just stay in their position and do what they needed to do, following people up and down, instead of doing what they should have been doing, fanning this flame as well. Who wanted influence? And that's what we saw. It was clear. Until yesterday, they were kicked out. Did you see?
It hasn't been formalized.
It's not yet formal. That's the same thing we asked. Like page 2 and page 3 of the standard has 2 sets of leadership.
Incoming and outgoing, right?
They haven't even said that. There's a Senate majority leader on one page and a Senate majority leader on the other page. There's no incoming, there's no outgoing.
Time will tell today.
So actually, I think the House Business Committee was to meet, I think, at 8 or 8:30. So in a matter of minutes, we would know. But this relationship was doomed from the word go. I saw it. We all saw it.
So why did they stay for so long in this relationship?
Because they had 2 hurdles to overcome. The first one was the 2013 election, and with it, the ICC. The second one was the 2017 election. So once you've achieved your purpose, you move on to the next thing. And I think, in my opinion, both sides should have seen that after 2017, it was time to reorganize and find your own other ways to do something else. So it was doomed. As you say, if you're not there for the long haul, once you achieve your purpose or what took you there, you will bolt once it's done, because you're not there for the long haul anyway. So that, okay, I shouldn't think that any one of these people, especially the ones who've been kicked out, will be surprised that they were kicked out, because it was just a matter of time. Because people are now realigning, COVID or no COVID, they are realigning because there is a next hurdle to come, which is the 2022 elections that everyone is looking at. How do I position myself to get power, or how do I position myself to be next to power or to be the kingmaker? Everyone is aligning and, forming their own coalitions and their own things. So that's what we are seeing playing out here. So that
is it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to do for President Uhuru Kenyatta? I mean, he has fashioned himself to be the one who is a peacemaker. He's a peacemaker. He's the one who listens. He wants to
build
bridges. Is this the right move to actually go all out like this and kick out just because they're allies of William Ruto? Kick them out in this manner. Kick out William Ruto in this manner. Is this the right thing to do? Is this the right approach that he should have taken?
So there's right thing in 2 ways, as I see it. The right thing for the individual of Uhuru Kenyatta and the right thing for the country. For the country, obviously, it's not. I mean, we have floods, we have a threat of hunger and famine because of flooding and all of this. We have economy is down on its knees. We have COVID here that is affecting us left, right and center. We have an education sector which needs,
let's just say,
like we have bigger problems. So the way I'm looking at it, for the country, it is not. This, for me, it's not an important conversation because we have bigger issues. And this, for me, is a time where if you are the leader, if the buck stops with you, this is the time to show leadership and say, you know what, I know we have all these wrangles, but people come first. People's issues come first. If I'm looking at the country.
Even
but
Kipchumba and Keheka Kimani are people.
See,
Their
that's what I'm
issues
saying.
Also coming first. Let's just take a break, take a look at weather, and then continue this. 19 minutes after 8. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Clouds in Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. However, the promise of rain is still strong. At 24 is what we'll see the high today, coming down to lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 17 degrees this morning, 23 the high. Yes, it's going to be wet there as well. Wet conditions will be experienced in Nakuru later on today, currently at 17 degrees, and partly cloudy conditions. We'll see a high of 24. Taking a look then into Eldoret, the rain will make its debut there as well. The highs of 23. Currently mostly cloudy conditions at 16 degrees. Taking a look into Mombasa, where it's been cloudy for the last few hours, still continues at 25 degrees. The droplets of rain are going to start coming in very soon. Highs of 28 will be experienced in the coastal town today. 26 degrees and mostly cloudy in Malindi. It'll be wet there in the afternoon as well, with highs of 28 and lows of 26. Taking a look then into East Africa, in Kampala, it's a cloudy morning at 20 degrees. Thunderstorms expected for the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 19. Into Dar es Salaam, it's mostly cloudy this morning at 24 degrees. We'll see a high of 30 and lows of 24 with showers through most parts of the afternoon. In Johannesburg, at 11 degrees, clear skies and mostly sunny conditions through the day with highs of 21. It'll chill down though to a low of 8 today. And rounding it up now for Lagos at 26 degrees. It's going to be clear skies all through with highs of 33 and lows of 26.
This is the Situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. So this is what we know, that apparently there was a meeting yesterday at the invitation, the direct invitation of President Uhuru Kenyatta as the party leader of Jubilee. He had invited senators to State House for a meeting, and a number of senators went. There's still some conflicting information about how many senators were there, how many were they? Were they less than 20? Were they more than 20? Were they 17? It's still not clear, but whatever. Well, there were senators that met, and apparently these senators in a parliamentary group decided to elect new leaders for the Senate. And they elected Senate Majority Leader now to be Samuel Pogisio, the West Pokot Senator, to replace Kipchumba Murkomen of Elgeyo Marakwet. They elected Irungo Kangata to be the Majority Chief Whip to replace Susan Keheka of Nakuru. They elected Deputy Majority Leader to be Fatuma Dulo Aidan of Isiolo, and nominated Senator Farhia Ali Haji to be the Deputy Majority Whip. The side of Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Keheka addressed a media conference later in the afternoon. And they said, first of all, this meeting, we were not even aware of it. We were not invited to this meeting. So whatever deliberations were happening in that meeting, come on, really. Why are you holding a meeting without us being present? What exactly are you trying to tell us? And this is what Kipchumba was saying. Kipchumba is a lawyer. The play of words there, No invitation extended to us
And
for a
we were
meeting.
caucusing since yesterday evening.
For a meeting whose agenda was to remove the leader.
Oh, did
So
you know
he
the
could
agenda?
have been invited, but he was invited for a different meeting whose agenda was different. Basically, David Murathe, the vice chairman of Jubilee, says the text message that was sent to the senators was sent by the president himself. This is what David Murathe is saying. It was not the party chairman, it was not the secretary general, it was the president himself, the party leader, who sent a text message to each individual senator and invite each individual Jubilee senator and invited them to State House for a meeting. Kipchumba and Senator Susan Keheka are saying, look,
They say they didn't get the message?
we did not get any invitation for any meeting. That's why we did not even attend this meeting. We are not aware of this. So whatever you're saying happened in State House, to us, is moot.
Wananchi knew there was a meeting going to happen.
Even we knew there was a meeting, for crying out loud.
Even
Nobody
he
can say they
says
didn't
he
know
saw
there
it
was
in
a
the media.
meeting. Of course.
Seeing it in the media
Of
is
course he's
one
gonna
thing and the other.
Of course he's going to say that because, the thing is, unfortunately...
It's State House. You don't just show up at State House. Nimesikia kuna mkutano huko ndani. No. Is your name here? No, it's not. Go.
So you think he went to the gate and he was told to go back?
Why embarrass yourself by
Oh.
going to the gate if you haven't received an invitation?
Come on, Eric. If you're going to fall prey to these words and this soliloquy that was then played on the violins by them after this meeting yesterday, then that's quite unfortunate. Because they knew they knew there was a meeting.
How do they know
Whether
there was
they
a
chose
meeting?
not to go, we were not just told that everybody was sent an invitation. Those who went, and those who even received the message and declined to go, how did they get the invitation?
You see, if
Is it just two of them who,
if you have one
for
number
them,
and I've switched
Safaricom
off
or
that
Airtel
number
or
because I
whoever
have
did
Fuliza,
not,
I have
did
Fuliza
not,
on this number, I've switched it off, and you've sent a message that I have not received a message.
But
Tuma
somehow
kwa ile
you
ingine
found, but
si tuma kwa hii.
somehow,
Kwa hii.
but
Tuma kwa
somehow
hii.
you found your way. Somehow you found your way to Parliament buildings thereafter. To
Because
start
I
talking
hear
about
things,
this
yeah.
issue. The phone suddenly came on after 9:50
I'm
on
watching
Monday
the news and
morning.
I'm hearing,
There
I'm
was a
seeing on the
meeting,
news, there's a meeting and there's been a change.
That thing, they knew very well what they're doing. And it's obvious that you've just said yourself, he's a lawyer and he knows how to use his words very well. There will be play and he will tell people, you know what, we actually didn't know that there were... The play on words is... In fact, I have to tip my hat, if I was wearing one, off to him and say, fantastic job. Very good.
You're being polite.
Yeah.
It's not a play on words. There's
It's
a
a lie.
lot of dishonesty going on
it's a
here.
lie.
And all of this comes at the backdrop of
Why
a
are we choosing to
political...
believe the other side?
No, we're not. Personally, I'm not believing anyone.
Okay.
We're coming from a backdrop where all of these characters stand up, fully grown men and women, in front of TV cameras or on a podium somewhere, open their mouths and openly say lies. It is not the first time. Shall not be the last time. So this, for many years, we are used to people talking from both sides of the mouths. So when Murkomen and Kiheka say A, B, C, and D, when the Jubilee side, Murathe says A, B, C, and D, it's just a matter of he says, she says. We cannot verify. So the best thing is to not believe
So it's
any one
possible
of
that
them.
they had been excluded in the invitations.
Just don't believe any one of them.
The meeting.
Yeah, it's still
Take it
possible.
to the other side. It's possible that they said, I'm not going.
At Wendy.
This one I'm not going
Yeah.
because I know what the agenda is and I don't want to go.
I'm not gonna
I will
get
not be
embarrassed.
embarrassed in front of my other fellow senators. I will not be removed from my position in the presence of these other people. They'd rather remove me in absentia. It could be that they refuse to go as well. So to come and then speak in that manner whereby both sides of the coin could be possible, you would have rather just kept quiet.
How do you keep quiet? Keep quiet. So these things that have happened, you just keep quiet.
So that, no, why open your mouth and talk about things that could be untrue?
But even the other side could be
Because
telling
they're-
us things that
yeah.
also could be untrue.
Exactly.
You
That's
don't
all.
allow them
So
to
in my
just keep-
opinion, they should have just done all of these things quietly and not involved us. Just let us continue fighting COVID, floods,
This is what I'm saying.
education,
Because
economy,
now,
all
you
of
want
these
to
other
now
things.
use all of this drama to get people off course, unfortunately, because that's what's going to happen. Because now it has become a story.
It
How
is.
there's dishonesty in the presidency, and the president is talking about forgeries, and how we did not know or did know, and how there are helicopters waiting for people in Taiveta and Marsabit and wherever else. There are helicopters waiting for senators, and how this and the other thing is going. Who bloody cares? Were you kicked out? We don't know. Will it be that you'll be kicked out? We'll know today.
We'll know today.
Then we carry on with life, right?
As if nothing happened.
2022 will come. But look, that's the truth. And the thing is, and talking earlier about it's the wrong timing.
Yeah,
we have known we know for a fact that politicians and politics is not dictated by timing or situations. Anybody can stand up out of the woodwork today and decide that this is my day to align myself, or this is my day to attempt to say something that's going to put me in a particular direction. The respect of time and situation has never been something that they've employed.
I was beginning to think that for the last 60 days or so, our politicians have been bored.
They needed something to do.
You
didn't see they started last week?
Yeah,
they've been
bored.
roused.
They have
They
been
had
bored.
nothing to
They were
do.
working from home.
No.
As you can clearly see.
Let's just say that they were at home. All this, the
Working
thing
from-
that you said before that.
They were working
Is
from, as you can
So
see.
I think they've just been bored. They're used to these dramas and COVID, floods, all of these things.
It's not helping them.
Is not helping them, because just look at it from the beginning. Which of all of these characters have contributed anything significant, even in words,
How many
in
of them have
kind,
taken a pay cut?
to the COVID discourse? Have you had any one of them come out and say, from my own personal kitty, I think I can sponsor this so many people to quarantine?
We saw the
From
Speaker
my
of
own
the Senate
so and
take a
so.
pay cut, right? Who else?
How they
Kalonzo Foundation has done that.
they have not contributed anything significant
They're doing that in
to
their
the COVID
constituencies.
discourse.
Where?
Where?
In
How?
their constituencies.
How?
Ask their constituents.
Eric Latif. They should leave that thing, I beg. It's clear. It is clear.
So I think
It is clear at this point, it is clear at this point that
If you don't know what your MP has done, go and ask your neighbor.
somebody needed
Someone
to say
knows.
something, and it's now
To keep
because
them
they say-
active.
Yes,
Also
keep them
remember,
active. Battle
Mutahi
lines have
Kagwe
now been drawn, and now they say,
gagged
"Wait, we will
everybody.
answer." What did he
No.
say?
No.
What did he say today? Murkomen.
Kagwe did not gag anybody
they
from
would
saying,
gag
I am
everybody.
helping in this and this end. No.
That is Matiang'i who did that. He released a statement and said, all donations shall be coordinated from the interior.
Then take your donations there.
Yeah, maybe they've taken
And who says you
quietly.
have to do donations? Why don't you hold up even, I mean, this is not a very good example, but Babowino is teaching students on Facebook. Why don't you sit on Facebook and regurgitate the same thing that government is saying about keeping corona away? Why don't you come and encourage people about the
Centrality of
floods?
information is very important, and this is what the NAC has
No,
said.
I'm not
We
buying
want
it.
information on
I'm
COVID-19
not
to come
buying
from
it.
one source. When you start
I'm not
having all
buying
these politicians with their own interpretations of what
Look
the
at
government has
Joho.
said,
Joho is doing his own things on the other
he's a
side.
governor.
But
Executive position.
what has stopped all of these people from backing
They
their
are not
governors
in
in
executive
doing?
positions.
No. Back your own governor in doing whatever he needs to do in the particular county. Nothing has stopped them from doing that. So for me, the serious conversations is beyond the political discourse. So they had to look for something that is well within their remit
Yeah,
to pick her about.
yeah.
Well, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
When
And
nurses are agitating for better allowances, politicians are agitating for political stuff. It is normal. Everybody is playing in their turf. 8:30, it's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right. Has changed much? Not really. There's really not much happening this morning for us to talk about except for the day. It's the next heading. We also see that it's not so bad on Mombasa. Less than 20 minutes from in and out.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Facebook at Spice FM
Except
KE.
for what we see again on Thika Road.
Traffic.
Now, Kenyatta Highway closed between the UTI junction and Kenya nuts next to Juakali. Motorists have been asked to use other alternatives to and from Makongeni in Thika Town. So the Kenyatta Highway in Thika Town has been closed. It would be nice if this was said yesterday, but okay. It's been closed and that announcement has been given. So you need to use an alternate route in Thika Town so that you can get where you're going in good time. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us with other information that we need to share. And we will.
discussing this split of Jubilee, which is a mother party comprising of 13 big ones are TNA, and the others, Jubilee and others. Not
Spice up your life.
The Mbas party.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
And other political parties. Clearly, with what has happened now, where
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Driving a dagger into the bodies of the supporters of William Ruto by kicking out Kipchumba, Susan Keheka, and the others from the leadership of the Senate. And what we've heard from the Jubilee leadership, especially the party deputy chairman, David Morales, saying, now from here, we go to the National Assembly and also reorganize the leadership there. Then we see that Jubilee has gotten into a post-election coalition with KANU, which has also been dismissed by those people in the Tanga wing of Jubilee. We've also heard that Kalonzo's party, Wiper, could be open to this conversation. And in fact, Kalonzo himself has said, yeah, you know what? It's a conversation that we could have. And this is what he said. Just listen to him.
It's very interesting. I saw some bragging, I think, by Dennis Itumbi in the social media, saying that Senator Gideon Moi was boasting about the agreement he signed. There was no such thing.
It may not be a coalition, as you hear what Kalonzo, another lawyer, is saying. Choice of words as well. They're already in a coalition as ODM, Wiper, and Ford Kenya. So they're having a conversation, and they could enter into an agreement on how they can work together to bring the country together. We may be staring at a very big coalition here, or big alliance, of Jubilee A and ODM and KANU and Amani National Congress and Ford Kenya and Wiper, just taking us back all the way to 2002 when we had...
I wouldn't lose sleep over it. I wouldn't hold my breath either, because it's too early. This is 2020. This election is 2022. It's only at the end of 2021, at the beginning of 2022, is when you'll start seeing the true, horses that will do the final race. At the moment, really,
I don't think there's anything jaw-dropping right now.
No.
That gets anybody shaking or quaking in their boots. Nothing really has happened. I'm telling you, you will see things. Like Christmas 2021. By that time, you will see things that would have unfolded that you didn't expect to happen. But like we said, it's politics. You will have people who you would look at this moment and never expected a groveling bone in their body will be groveling. And they will say, you know what, let us in on this as well. You know what, I've all this time, my beliefs are just like yours. It just happened that things along the way maybe didn't really bring us together. But you know what? You and I are on the same page.
We're brethren.
We are. So let me in on this. You'll see that we'll be able to work very well together. Trust me, it'll happen. You will have people who have taken a hard stance today, taking a very soft stance in the future.
Oh, yeah.
People who took a soft stance or, fence status today will choose a side very quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if more people decided that they too were open to talks to join this.
There'll be so many of them. In fact, I expect that many people
many more
will come in because people are looking at right now being close to power means being close to some resources. And right now, looking at the state of the economy, looking at the state of the globe, looking at everything else, people are suffering. So everyone here is up to save their own skin. Everyone is looking at, if I align myself here, what is in it for me? It is never about us, guys. the wananchi. Everyone is looking at what is in it for me. If I stay close to the fire, will I be warm or will I get burned? So they'll go and stay somewhere where they're keeping warm. They are not suffering out in the cold. And then when the right time comes, or when you have a clear picture on who is likely to take what, is when now people will take the actual stand that they will use up to the end of the next general election. And after that, after you've achieved what you want, we will come back to this same thing again, and it will be all over again. So there's nothing permanent here. What I expect, though, is that these people who've been kicked out, now that they're out in the cold, they'll have to look for another special purpose vehicle.
They'll coalesce somewhere.
They'll also go and look for somewhere, because you cannot exist in a vacuum.
Well, as
obviously, you're not. You've been kicked out of that house. You're not going to keep on staying in that house, and you're not wanted.
It would be political suicide for them to lay low and not do anything about it, or just say we're going to accept the circumstances as they are. They would be dead in the water if they were going to continue that way. So it's obvious that somebody is thinking about the next move. It would be stupid if they had not thought about it previously. To say that, if A happens, then B is the way we are going to go. And that's just how politicians are. That's what you wouldn't want to not have a strategy in place. And you can be sure that even those who put this together themselves yesterday, including the president, if they don't have strategy B, they too would not be very intelligent. You can't think that this one plan that you have is foolproof and it's going to get you out of any... No. You would be sure that they also have something else and say, look, you know what? If this one is not what we see it to be, this is the way then that we are going to go. That's how it works. Now, if we want to take this even a little bit further, then if we want to come back to the people of Kenya, if you can see this drama unfolding before your very eyes, what happens when you get to the ballot? Because just like you've said, it is clear that this is personality politics. This is not ideology politics here at all. So it is clear that people's intention is not for the better. It's not for the good of the country. Where are the leaders in this country, or any other country for that matter, who are really interested in the forward movement of the people of this country onto development, onto the betterment of the people, onto making sure that systems work, onto making sure that you create a system so strong that whichever individual comes in the future enters into a working, properly organized system that continues to move the country forward? Those are the leaders that you should be putting into power. Not the ones who are out for their personal gains. Unfortunately,
Kenya, we just have politicians. We don't have leaders.
Nowhere, hiding in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity.
No, the ones we know are just politicians.
There are many leaders. Even amongst those politicians, there are leaders.
Qualify your statement.
There are many. Shame me after this. I'll give you examples.
This so that you have to go and think about examples.
No. I'm not thinking about them. I'll just give you leaders and what qualifies them as leaders, But coming back into this politics as it's unfolding now, yes, it's, high drama is rotating very fast. It's clearly people who are political in their element have found their place. And they're playing a high-stakes game here. So we're seeing that, a move has been made to completely splinter Jubilee A and Jubilee B, Tangatanga and Kieleweke. And Tangatanga has been kicked out. So far, we have seen that they met yesterday. A number of senators met with the president, and they decided outgoing will be Senate Majority Leader, Whip, and the leadership of the Senate, majority in the Senate. And new members are coming in. The question I was asking, at this point, looking at what brought Uhuru and Ruto together, looking at how they have, treated one another in their political career from the very beginning, even before they came together to form government, knowing one another and their friendship, was this a good move to take? Knowing the president and how he has projected himself as the man who is calm and all, was it too harsh for him to do this?
It's actually the point I was saying before the previous break, that there are two sides. From a Mwananchi point of view, obviously a bad decision, obviously bad timing, obviously everything wrong about it in the eyes of we, the Mwananchi. From an individual point of view, because the president is an individual at the end of the day with his own interests and whatnot, it could be that it's serving some purpose, which we don't know. And since it is not serving our purpose as wananchi, then the assumption is, and assumptions are never a very good thing, but the assumption here is that it is serving a certain purpose for the Uhuru Kenyatta, the man, and not necessarily the presidency. Because you have to look at those things very differently. At the end of the day, if all goes well, hopefully all goes well, at the end of 2022, he'll need to retire and go back home. But as you had earlier said, the Kotu Secretary General keeps saying, he's too young to retire. So is this a ploy somewhere to, position him and ripen him for something that we don't know of? Could be. Because he's also looking at how to survive after that, because after you've become the president at this young age,
then
what do you do? Where do you go to? So could be there's something in it for him as a person or his empire, whatever it is. But for Mwananchi,
I'm not asking about Mwananchi Basket. I'm asking about his brand. Uhuru the brand. Is this a good move for Uhuru the brand? Does he portray him, as the leader that he'd like to be portrayed?
Well, I think it did everything to do that.
Is he being seen like, he's a calculating politician, he's a conniving politician, he's ruthless?
it's not.
No, I don't think so. I think
not.
for the longest time, the question was, if we look at what happened in the last 12 months and look at the calls that came out from various factions, and people were saying, where is the president in all of this? Where is he? He's not speaking. He's not focused. If we look at the whole BBI fiasco and all that was going on, people were asking, why is the president not coming out and speaking? Why is he sending emissaries? Why is he not speaking? This was his opportunity to speak and to say, you know what? I am the leader here.
Some piece of authority.
This is my position to stamp my authority and let you know really who is boss, number one. Number two, I'll make a move so calculating and so clear that you will not have to doubt, for all avoidance of doubt, who then the king is. And this was clear in what he was able to do here. This is it. What does he have to lose? He has absolutely nothing to lose.
Zero.
He's done. According to the Constitution, he will not be president again, right? Unless some act of...
That's why I say if all goes well.
changes things the way we know them to be. He doesn't have anything to lose here. But he didn't want to leave any doubt as to who was the boss. The last 10 years, currently and moving forward. Just because he is not president doesn't mean that he will not continue to be party chair. Right? He can still be there and still be party leader, still be party leader. But to say that, you know what, we're going to clean up house. And boss, he cleaned up house.
He's cleaning it up.
Yes.
Completely. Big broom. David Murathe was saying that this was a decision that was long overdue. There was pressure from all quarters all the time. Like you're saying, every time people are asking, where is the president in all of this? Why is the president so quiet? And this is what Murathe was saying. And I'm going to open up the phone line, 0719 012 600. What do you think of this direct move by the president? So, yeah, that's what he's saying. It was too long. There were questions left, right, and center. People asking, why is it taking so long for you to act? Was it a direct affront on the president when the deputy president was doing all these things? When we were seeing the leadership in both houses of parliament, by the way, or people who are aligned to the deputy president. If you look at the Senate, this is Kipchumba and Susan Keheka. If you look at the National Assembly, Aidan Duale, somebody who has long been associated with William Ruto. In fact, he was in URP with William Ruto. You see? So,
and said some very interesting things as well in the last 12 months. He was not secretive about what his emotion, what his sentiments were. But then recently you've seen that, look, he obviously got wind of somebody, of the leader coming in to clean up shop. And what has he done? Stayed in his corner, not irritated anybody. And guess what? This wind did not touch him.
He's quiet.
Yes.
Let's see when it goes to the National Assembly.
Let's see when it goes to the National Assembly whether he will be touched or not. However, he's been quiet in anticipation of what could happen. And we hear David Murathi saying very clearly, we're done with the Senate.
Or maybe he was just brought up well.
He didn't
Do
remember
not
his home
bite
training.
the hand that feeds
He didn't
you.
remember his home training when he was speaking just 12 months ago. Just 6 months ago, in fact.
It wasn't clear to him
That what?
that there was a split.
Unless you're blind
And then
without a guard dog,
clearly.
without a white cane. In fact, all your sensory indicators are all dead. That's the only way you can say he didn't know what was happening. He knew very well what was happening. Come on.
He wasn't as rough as you'd expect, you know.
I said now, the
As
way
the-
he's
as the
behaving
others.
now, vis-a-vis how he behaved in the last 8-9 months, and the utterances that he was making previously. He's obviously seen that the best thing for me at this point is just to be quiet, do what I need to do, support where I need to support, and maybe these winds of change will not blow me in any kind of crazy direction. And I think clearly he's pandering to that, knowing that he's seen that these guys mean business when they're actually going to get, if they get to the floor of the House in the National Assembly, the way they cleaned up yesterday, they'll clean up there too.
Let's go to the phone lines. And Daniel is calling in from Kisumu. Good morning, Daniel.
How are you guys?
Hello, we're fine, thank you. How are you?
I am fine. The move that was pulled yesterday was surprising, but then again, it was not entirely surprising if you've been watching or following the political scene in this country. We had a conversation about this right here, some breakfast show. I don't remember exactly when it was. And we told you, and I remember you telling us not to speculate, but we said there was a Kanu hand in what was happening in Jubilee. But even though it's not surprising, even William Ruto himself and the people coalescing around him, they are expecting this. They are probably not just expecting to be pushed to this corner right now, because what the president or the people advising him are doing is they are forcing William Ruto into like exposing his hand right now, because William Ruto has a political vehicle for 2022. It's not going to be Jubilee. In fact, even the papers have already reported this sometime last year when they talked about a new party registered by his proxies at the registrar of parties. So it is not entirely unexpected. I think the drawback right now is that it's kind of forcing him to come out too early when he was not supposed to. When he was supposed to be kujipanga to go for a full offense maybe next year or sometime. But it's not entirely like something that he was not expecting. He knew this was going to come eventually.
So he saw it
and
coming.
And
So
I'm
you're
sure
saying that he's been prepared.
I am sure being the sly politician is, because let me tell you, William Ruto learned from Moi. William Ruto learned from Raila Odinga. That guy is the most
Learned.
sly politician this country has.
Thank you very much,
And
Daniel.
trust me, these guys who are boasting right now,
Yeah,
they're in for a surprise.
they should watch out, huh? Thank you, Daniel.
Big
Thank you.
surprise.
Thank you, Daniel. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. That's 0719-012-600. Blackwater, you'd called, and I was about to put you on air. Just call back. That's 0719-012-600. Also, you can post your comments on social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. What Daniel is saying is that this man is very, very astute politician.
He learned from the best.
He learned from the best.
Yeah.
And
So he's a mix of both worlds.
So he could be very many steps ahead.
It would be foolhardy of those who are watching and those who are even in close circles with him to think that he didn't have a plan or that there was no strategy that he intends to employ when it comes to his next move. By virtue of the fact that he's been mum since yesterday, those may say, well, it's the Senate and really has nothing to do with him. Au contraire. And it has everything to do with him and his political career.
Yeah.
Like I said, it would be political suicide to actually go forward without a strategy. And I think that in the very near future, we're going to see and hear what that strategy essentially would be. whether it means alignment. And look, don't be shocked. I would not be in a position of open mouth if we don't see even stronger alliances within these very same things that we're talking about. And I'm saying people who you would think don't have a groveling
going with Kalonzo.
Anybody. I said anybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
Anybody but Uhuru.
Things they said yesterday, and then today the story changes. This is anybody can align with anybody tomorrow. Once you see that it is not working for you, you can say that I had amnesia.
And even the ones that have aligned and signed agreements and now are bosom buddies, they can split tomorrow.
Yeah. Kariuki in Nakuru, good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
In Nakuru, good morning.
How are you? I'm fine.
Kariuki, just switch off your radio so we can talk to you. I think you're responding to us from a very, long distance. So basically, Kariuki is calling in from Nakuru. And the number to call is 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Kariuki, hi.
I am fine.
Good.
And what about the other two?
Fine, thank you,
The other
Kariuki.
two are fine.
Okay, I just want to contribute towards maybe what happened yesterday. I think, if I may comment, let me say Mr. President has gone wrong on this one. One, apart from maybe taking over the whole country, let's talk about maybe the backyard of the president.
Yep.
In this case, I don't think the backyard of the president, the followers, including myself and the others, and especially the people who voted for him, I don't think we are anywhere near worshiping somebody like a god. The way he is doing this, I don't think he has his own vote anyway. If I may say this, my dear, as you have suggested since morning, this is not the right time to do what he is doing. And in fact, showing the open hatred against the person who took him over to the other side of the political divide. Remember, there was a very bad and a very serious opposition against his president, and especially coming power. Remember, in 2002, when he was brought to power, the sentiment that was given by the likes of Mediwo, who he was with in the United States in school, remember the sentiment. He was telling us, I wish you guys, what kind of a person you are going to, has been brought to you by the late president. I wish you knew what kind of a person he is, because you used to learn with him in the United States. Remember those sentiments?
Yeah,
Today,
so basically, Kariuki, what you're saying is that the president was ill-advised to take this move.
Pardon?
You're saying that it was a wrong move for him to make.
Of course, it's very wrong. And remember,
he has betrayed his partner.
Yes. Remember today, Kenyan people are all out to see to it that the dynasty will go home for good. We have been slaves under the dynasty for a very long time.
Which Kenyans, Kariuki? You want to speak for yourself?
Remember, Eric, I know where you are in political divide. I know.
Where am I?
But remember,
I'm a dynasty.
You are a dynasty. I know who you are supporting. But remember, here on the ground, my dear Eric, we are very tired of these hula barrows of the 3-4 dynasty. 3 family and 4. Remember that.
So, Kariuki, where is the Hustler Nation going to next? You've been kicked out of the dynasty, all right? So let's just accept. So where are you going next?
Let me tell you, my dear, the Hustler Nation is with the people. Remember that. Come to the ground, my dear, if you want to know the truth.
What's the truth?
Even a child.
That's what I'm asking.
Kariuki,
so where are you going to
next?
next?
What's the truth? I think we've said this very many times. In this case, what is the truth?
Truth about what?
You've just said, ask the people on the ground. They'll tell you the truth about who they want their leadership to be. What's the truth?
Of course. My dear, the writing is on the wall. Let me tell you the truth.
Okay, I cannot read the writing, and I'm asking.
I've been saying this. You guys don't stay there. It's a broadcast.
Okay.
Just try it sometimes, go around and go to the grassroots and maybe ask the people.
Kariuki, now that you are there, now that we are not there and you are there, Spell it out. What is the truth? What is it?
The truth, the way, the pattern that we use when it comes to voting. This is what we are asking our people. Where are we now? Because the situation is
so what you're saying is, bottom line, Kariuki, you are with William Ruto.
And of course, why not?
Bas.
I'm a hustler like him.
Why?
Remember that?
Kabisa.
I'm a hustler like him. And sometimes I see Ruto, I see God. Because remember,
all right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Remember this. God has held his hand from the grassroots until the second man in command. Remember that?
But Kariuki, other people
we're
said...
coming to the top of the hour. Thank you very much just for calling in. And the conversation continues as we come to the top of the hour. Today's proverb is if a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Kariuki, tell the Hustler Nation that. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Dynasty. Remember? Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, has it changed much? No, not really. Today's a good day as far as traffic is concerned. There was just a little problem of traffic on Thika Road today, but that has opened up quite some. And in and outbound, we don't have much problems at all. So if it does change, do let us know and we'll let you or others know as well. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. But traffic looks good today, guys. It really does.
Traffic. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga,
the CS for Health,
researcher,
will be joining us on the line at
academic,
9:30.
seasoned political
In
observer,
between, let's
a
continue
fountain
talking
of
this
wisdom in
conversation
these
today.
politically
Hustler Nation
uncertain
versus the
times.
dynasty as,
Ndu
Kariuki
Oko,
or Kulima Martin
Nigerian
Nakuru
by
says.
birth, Kenyan
Was this
by
the
choice,
right move
communications
for
expert,
President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Jubilee Party
Pan-Africanist,
leader,
a truth
to make
seeker
at
and
this particular
believer
time?
in
David
people
Brother
power,
says it was long
and
there was
Eric
pressure. There were
Latin,
questions all
agent
over.
provocateur,
Every now
the
and
man
then,
in
where
the
is the
chair,
president?
seasoned journalist,
Why are we
news
seeing
hound, a man who
open
believes
rebellion
in punching
the
up.
Jubilee Party? Was there open rebellion in the Jubilee Party? So we're asking that question. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Kariuki is saying basically if you go to the ground. So it's clear that there's a proper divide of those who are with William Ruto and those who are not with William Ruto.
But even coming into this Jubilee marriage many years back, since I think 2012, 2013,
Yep.
it was very clear that William Ruto came with his own in-laws, Uhuru came with his own in-laws, and most of those in-laws have remained with their person. So it's really everyone has either solidified their ground and one other party may have made inroads into the other person's turf.
Yeah.
So it's now just as again he said, she said, somebody will say I have so many numbers, the other one will say I have so many numbers, and it will be true. Everyone will have their own numbers. So the only difference is who has more numbers than the other one. And then unfortunately in this country, having more numbers does not necessarily mean you take the prize. Yeah, and I remember when
you and your numbers kakando.
You remember when the tax bill that gave us the 8% on the fuel levy?
Yeah,
it was very obvious which side won in Parliament. I mean, but then the acting speaker just says the ayes have it. And it was blatant impunity.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, these people who are crying here, they are the same people who are cheering that,
True.
So
let's go to the phone lines, if you don't mind. We've got a number on hold. Martin in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well, thank you. Thank you for calling in. A quick one. What do you have to say on this?
A quick one. I don't have much to say, but just as a citizen, I'd like to say that the president, I think, is the one who has washed his hands and is now waiting to eat with the king, who will now uprise. And from the thinking, I think the president has made a critical thinking by assessing the situation now, trying to figure out and analyze the people's response, and then evaluate his next move.
Okay.
So what I'm likely to see is that there'll be something like a collection of information, and appropriate action will be taken by the president later. So the president is competent to make his move. So we don't have to question anything that he does.
Okay.
And in his marriage, he can be polygamous or monogamous.
And he has chosen what he wants to do. Thank you, Martin. Roderick, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
good morning.
Roderick,
was
it a right time and the right move for the president to make?
That move was just right. Actually, it was long overdue. You cannot have a wife that disrespects you in your own house, and you continue going back there. You have to come back to a home where you have peace of mind and to move the family forward.
Okay.
The thing is this, and I want to advise my brother in Nakuru, Zachary, or whoever it was saying, calling somebody God. You don't play with the name of God. Siasa, weka pande moja. Injili, weka pande ingine. And it's never that serious. There's life after this.
Thank you, Roderick.
But William Ruto did a miscalculation to his side. Let's see what he'll counter now.
Okay. Thank you. Raymond, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Raymond.
Welcome to the Situation Room. What do you think? Has the president made the right move at the right time?
Actually, this is not the right time for politics. Actually, I did wonder yesterday when the president is involving himself in politics. And right now we have around, I think, 250 people who have died because of floods. And the president is talking about Senate politics. Actually, it's a very big shame. And secondly, I have heard people talk about wife politics. You know, the deputy president is not a wife to the president, and they formed this party together. So when people are saying that the president can't live in an abusive marriage, the president formed the party with the deputy president. So the deputy president has a right of a share of the party.
He's an equal partner.
And also, they are partners. And also, the state was yesterday refused to publish photos of senators who attended the meeting. So it means that out of 34 Jubilee senators, there may only be 8 senators who attended the meeting. So it means that the senators are not with the president. Many senators are not with the president. It means that actually they have failed, and the many senators it shows that many senators actually with the deputy president right now.
Point made. Thank you, Raymond. George in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Now, allow me to contribute, please.
Go ahead. Did the president make the right move?
I just want to say that president did the best, and in fact, that is the most excellent. In fact, he did the right thing. Remember, this is politics.
Yeah.
Yes, and Mr. President holding the post that he holds currently in that particular Jubilee, that is the best move so far, because he must maintain his status quo. I remember when Deputy President joined Jubilee.
Yep.
Yes, he is aware that he went there and the president was Uhuru. Yes, and he's aware that Uhuru being the president, he has his roles, and of course he has the mandate, he has the powers and the authorities. He knows what the president can do and what the president cannot do.
Okay.
And
Thank
allow
you,
me
George.
to say that, yes.
Asante, George. Dominic in Kangemi, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. Did the president make the right move at the right time?
Hapo rais amekosea sana. Lakini kama nilivyomwambia jana, mimi na imani na naibu wa rais Ruto, najua na mpango kabambe sana kuhusu ile swala. Na atapita kwa sababu Ruto amesema vitu kwa ground different. Yes, it's very different. Kama mimi personally naamini Ruto kama anaweza. Yes, hivyo tu.
Basi, asante Dominic. Frederick in Utawala.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to contribute.
Yes, go ahead. Do you think the president made the right move?
Now, whether he made the right move or not is a own personal judgment. And for me, my reason is to just make a point on an issue that has been raised, that we only have politicians but not leaders. I believe with our strong conviction that despite all these mess and wrongdoing that we see in the political class happening in Kenya, there are leaders who are on the ground, who are looking at how people get education, people from poor backgrounds are able to get education, and I think this is not necessary.
Thank you, Frederick. Kevin in Umoja.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, it's a very interesting conversation over there. Yes, I just want to say that the thing that the president did was a very good move and at the right timing, okay? Because you can be able to see actually at the midst of COVID-19, he was able to strategically place his political game. And then it has worked out for him, because we are not going to experience the dramatic actions by the politicians. If it were not for COVID-19, then I think it would have been very well. So it is the right timing that the president has done the right thing. And this is a political problem which is solved politically.
Okay.
You know, there are no issues of morality here. It's pure politics, and politics are solved by political moves and games.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yes, thank you very much.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. You can also post your comments on Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, and Spice FM KE on Instagram. Opinion is divided. There are those that think that it was the right move, others that say, look, it doesn't matter what has happened. I stick with my man.
And it's expected that opinion would be divided, because this, as I said earlier, everyone came in with their own troops. So there are those who are still diehards, and whatever whatever you say, either there'll be confirmation of bias, or you will be speaking against their belief. And so if you're not saying what they believe, then obviously there'll be a rebuttal. So yeah, we expect opinion to be divided, and it will be divided for as long as there'll always be somebody in power and somebody wanting to be in power. What I would say here is, and using the words that these same people used in 2017 when Kenyans were asking to funguliwe server, they said, accept and move on. So they should do the same. The same advice you gave the other side is the same advice accept and move on.
Let's
move on and do something else.
Dennis in Nyeri, good morning.
Hey, morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good.
We're well, thank you. Thank you very much for calling in, Dennis.
It's been a while since I talked to you last time.
Thank you for calling in today.
Yeah, but
what do you think of the president's move?
Actually, there's only one thing I would like to say.
Yep.
The battle lines have been drawn. The warning shots have been fired. We now know who's the boss. The only thing I can say is the deep state is now working.
Mm-hmm.
And for us as voters, we normally they just massage you are just going to vote. You vote or you don't vote. We know when you have the advantage, you work towards the advantage.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right.
Enoch in Kiambu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
At this juncture, I think President messed big time.
He messed.
He messed big time.
Why?
So,
first, I think as much as we talk about, I think it's the president who started it off. All this agreement when he engaged the former prime minister in whatever the understanding they have. Yes, they are bringing the country together.
Yeah.
But the people who came up with our constitution, they thought it very well. For you to succeed in whatever you want to do, you must bring all the stakeholders within who are going to be affected by whatever the project you are going to undertake. Him to engage the former prime minister without telling his deputy, I have this thing I'm thinking about. That is where the rain started beating us. If at all he had the curtain to tell us, actually alimdharau sana, if I can use Kiswahili. Kuingia in another relationship without even telling him. Hiyo ni madharau. Na hii zote akina Murathe wanatupa maneno akina Tory and he cannot even tell them, please, this is my deputy. I think this is also, he is actually the man behind all what we have been saying. Yes, we can talk about the deputy president, he did, but he had all seen all this coming.
So the problem, the blame lies on
aspect, there's a betrayal aspect in the whole thing.
Okay. Enoch, thank you very much for your contribution today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okul in Eldoret.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The president was just cleaning the house because Kipchumba Murkomen, the minority leader, was proving to be more loyal to the deputy president than the party. So, that's the main reason why the president had to clean the house so that to bring people who are loyal to the party.
And the party is the
and not
president.
just
Or how do you distinguish between the party and the president?
The party is the Jubilee. And then the deputy president had a section of people who started campaigning for the 2022. And then Kipchumba Murkomen was steering that vehicle. So the president was just putting the party to order.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Asante sana Okul. Well, the long and short of it is the president and his deputy are clearly parting ways. It's just a matter of when. It's no longer if, it is when. And maybe with yesterday's move, the president is basically telling his deputy, look, make your move now. Make your move now.
I don't see
Step.
I don't see that happening because it would be like suicide. Because the position where he's at as a deputy, if you resign now, where do you go? What happens to you? So unless he is recalled, there is a vote of no confidence. I think there's something extra.
So he'd still stay in this to enjoy state machinery and to enjoy the everything, the perks that come with the position.
Of course, for sure. Where's he going to go?
He's a man of means. He doesn't need the money or the machinery.
No. You see, in some of these positions, Eric, if and I think it's human nature, maybe it's Kenyan nature, I don't know. But when you're in a certain position, when you have a certain title, people tend to find you useful. And if you talk to many of the politicians who have lost seats before, when they were in power, their phones would ring off the hook. You've seen some with, a carton load of phone numbers because they're always ringing. So you have one for your wife and family, you have one for your constituents, you have one for your side hustles, you have one for, all manner of things. When they leave office, those phones go quiet. So where the deputy president is right now, the moment he leaves, his
That
relevance
silence will come
goes.
in.
So I don't see him leaving, because then he'd be rendered irrelevant. And if you're rendered irrelevant this early, when you're looking at a certain end, then that would be political suicide. So personally, I see him staying there, hanging in there until when it is the right time to move. And that right time would be elections are here.
Well, sure. I don't think he would. I think he enjoys. Look, power is sweet. Power is really sweet. And even if nobody's speaking to you or including you, there's still certain perks that you enjoy and powerful perks that you enjoy just by being in that position.
Exactly.
I don't think it would be really intelligent of him to drop all of that. And like you said, he's a human being. And once you've tasted this for so long, you've drank out of this chalice of political sweetness, there's no way you want to now let it go. You don't just want to let it go because a few people said a few things here and there. No, you want to continue enjoying it for as long as you possibly can. I don't think he would step aside, because I think people have said worse and he's still stuck there. So a couple of senators tossed out is not going to make him change
unless he is tossed out forcefully. And now that I don't know what that would portend to the country.
Martyrdom. He'll gain so much. He'll gain some bonga points there. From people who had not decided, and they look at him and say, okay, you've been victimized long enough. I really stand with you. And they may look at it that way. 20 minutes after 9, let's take a look at weather and traffic, and then we get into a conversation with the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Any questions or comments to the CS, please post them on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE Instagram, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, and at Dr. Marcy Career, at Eric Latif, at Nduoko. Good morning.
Mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi today. A little bit overcast in some parts of the city. We'll see rain coming in later with highs of 24. Taking a look then into Nyeri, where there will be wet conditions experienced in the afternoon and highs of 22. It's mostly cloudy now. Nakuru also will be part of those that the rain comes down on. 23 degrees the high, with partly cloudy conditions right now. It's partly cloudy in Eldoret at 18 degrees. It'll be wet there as well in the afternoon, then with highs of 22. 26 degrees and cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 28 and lows of 25. Malindi is partly cloudy now, with the overcast situation having left. It'll be back though, with highs of 28 and lows of 26. Taking a look into Kampala, cloudy conditions and highs of 24 and lows of 19 when the rain comes in. Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, 27 degrees right now, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with showers in the afternoon. Johannesburg at 12 degrees is mostly sunny, clear skies through most of the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 8. Lagos is mostly sunny at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 25. Looking a lot better where we saw on Mombasa Road previously. We had an issue. The traffic this morning seems to have, it has behaved very well, has turned off in most areas. Unless anything does change, it looks like a pretty clear morning on most of our streets.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic. Mobile, and on radio. Instagram at Spice FM KE.
So we'll be hopefully speaking to the CS for Health. This is Mutahi Kagwe shortly. The CS for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, is also the chairman of the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19. Very many questions that we'll be asking him. So this is soon after his appointment, soon after he's sworn in, and he goes into the health ministry. And even when he's being nominated to the position, COVID-19 is already spreading around the world. And during his interviews with Parliament, the confirmation hearings with Parliament, he was there saying, you know what, I'll deal with this thing. I will deal with COVID. I'll be very resolute. I'll have a plan, an execution, and we'll be executing it very well.
You know, when you're going for any job interview, you will promise anything and everything because you want the job, and you obviously you don't want to look like you're second guessing yourself, like you're not sure about what you're up to. So obviously he was going to say he was going to deal with it. And to be fair to him, he didn't know what he was going to be up against. Like everyone else across the globe didn't know what he was going to be up against. So to come into the Ministry of Health, and within a week you are in the thick of things, I think he has tried. I think he's done his level best, considering the situation. And the Ministry of Health has been a very interesting docket. So far, since Uhuru's administration, we've had 4 cabinet secretaries. All of them have, for me, it is the ministry that will either make or break you. And so far, it has just broken. The first cabinet secretary there was James Macharia, now the cabinet secretary for transport. From his tenure came in the managed equipment scheme, and we know how that went. There's a whole Senate committee probing that because was it value for money? Looking at 2013, 2014, and now it's 7 years since that lease was in place. There are some counties which haven't even opened the boxes with those equipment, yet they are paying. Started by paying about 94 million shillings per year, then it went 200 million shillings per year. So there's a lot of messy things there. So out went Macharia, in came in Dr. Cleopa Mailu. Mailu had come with a very lofty CV from having managed the Nairobi hospital. And being a doctor, I think everyone saw like, he will understand. And he's a doctor who's been a manager. He's run a very successful business institution, a business, a healthcare business. And so there was a lot of expectations. Then the doctor's strike happened for 100 solid days. The nurses' strike was there. The clinical officer strike was there. The human resource in the health sector went down with him. And by the time that strike was going, the relationship was strained. Now he's Kenya's ambassador to the UN in Geneva. So out went Mailu, in came in Mrs. Cicely Kariuki. And her biggest task was universal healthcare. So there was a lot of conversation, restructuring NHIF. There was a lot of boardroom meetings, benchmarking in Thailand and other countries, Thailand coming in to benchmark because, Thailand is one of those countries that has done well in universal healthcare. But nothing was moving. There was a lot of meetings, a lot of probably some more tea and mandazi. Meetings. I think at least they did a pilot project of the 4 counties that were supposed to pilot it. And but it was not moving at the pace in which it was expected to move. What was not moving? How can you have meetings after meetings
but the
and you're not
project
seeing
was rolled
anything?
Out. And the pilot
was rolled out
for the 4 counties for the 1 year that it was expected to run.
It was, and then after the pilot.
The point of the pilot, because every time you have a pilot, it's so that you can now have it extended or now have something that will then be in existence. And the point of it was to then establish a health scheme that would be used around the country. Now, if a pilot fails, then it is indicative that the entire thing would essentially not work.
Or not even fail. If the outcome of the pilot is not clear, is not well understood, even by stakeholders, by the public, then what are you doing? And this pilot was rolled out in December of 2018 for 6 months. By the time we were getting to the next financial year, 2019-2020, we were not so sure about what we are doing and where we are going. Up to now, the issues around the pilot and what next steps, what to scale up, what,
It's basically the management of that project was just like all other projects, right? So it's out there, it's on paper, it looks very good on paper, but on the ground, things are not as they should be running.
Yeah.
And then you don't even come up with a report that shows what you scored as
these
wins,
are the gaps.
and these are the gaps, and these are the challenges, and this is what we can do to overcome.
Mm-hmm. So
out goes Sicily.
Out goes Sicily. In comes in Mutahi. So when Mutahi was coming in, I think the idea was, and I think possibly this is where my friend Dr. Mangangi was put in as cast, because she's done a lot on the UHC, was to now finally do the last leg of UHC. Like, you have all this pilot, whatever you have come up with,
Upscale
you have a clear
now.
plan and everything. Now implement, let us have universal health of some form for people in the country. So here, from the look of things, from an outsider's perspective, Mutahi Kagwe was bringing in the political muscle, and then his technical team now does the technical work. And like what we have basically seen with COVID response, where you have a political phase or a leadership phase that, tells you or makes you feel like we are in control. And then there's a whole technical team in the background that does all the works, fits all the pieces, looks at all the data, says this is a strategy, blah, 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 and moves on. So that was the plan. But then COVID had better ideas. And here we are.
Now,
so this COVID will either make or break.
We got a CS who was hit hard by a COVID pandemic, and nobody in the world knew exactly what they were dealing with. Look at the way we have had COVID in this country. We have not reached a point where we are overwhelmed, where we are basically, running helter-skelter, not knowing what we're dealing with. We're at a point over the last 60 days, at a point where we could manage it very well. So for me, it's about management of a project and logistics. It's looking at what do we need to do, ensuring it's done, putting plans and pieces in place. That is nothing to say that he has not been accustomed to, he was unprepared for. The COVID that we have in Kenya is not something that cannot be managed or something that we don't know. We already have experiences from other parts of the world. We know what this COVID is. We know what we need to do. We know the measures that we need to put in place. You've seen what is working, what is not working. We have the examples from other countries to basically borrow. So when we say, for example, we got our first case on 13th of March, what could we have done immediately when we got to the 13th of March? Already, there had been teams working in when COVID comes to Kenya, what shall we do? Is that what was happening? It didn't appear like what shall we do is what was done.
Because I remember that whole document had 4 scenarios. This was prepared way before Mutahi came into office. Had 4 scenarios of like best case scenario up to most likely scenario and worst case scenario. And what we experienced as a country was the most likely scenario, where somebody flies into the country and interacts with people, and by the time they're showing up 5 days, 1 week later, they've already, infected others, and there's a list of contacts to be followed. So that was all laid out there, and there was a plan of how you respond, how you engage, and how it will take. And they had estimated like 6 months to do all the contact tracing and whatnot that needs to be done. So that was the most likely scenario. But then what we saw actually happening was a measured, careful response. Like so you when somebody's sick, you want to start them on a low dose, or maybe you start on a high dose, then you taper down, or a low dose, then you upscale. So here we started from small. We shall the first measures was after announced, don't panic, wash your hands and whatnot. The situation is under control. Live your lives normally. I remember that first press conference, Mutahi says, live your life normally. Do not panic, wash your hands and whatnot. That was 13th on Friday. On 15th, now the measures came in. We are closing schools, but what remained was the places of worship. Then later, I think a week later after that, is bars shall be closed from 8 p.m. Was it 8 p.m. or 5 p.m.?
Bars shall be closed from Monday. So the press conference is happening on Friday. Bars shall be closed on Monday. And then a press conference happens on, was it Saturday now or Sunday? Bus shall close tonight.
Tonight, yeah, because Kenyans are behaving, are indisciplined.
Yes, Kenyans are indisciplined.
Yeah. Then the other big part where probably we should have done better, and we have discussed this quite a lot on the Situation Room, is the mandatory quarantine. Yes, it was fair to give people 48 hours in which time to make it into the country. So you say by 25th of March, all flights shall be banned, because if people are in transit and whatnot, you don't want them to be stranded in airports and whatnot. So it was fair enough. But what did we do with the mandatory quarantine? We did not have a clear idea. And remember that Monday we had Kas Mwangangi here, and it wasn't so clear that the government had a well laid out plan on mandatory quarantine. Like, for example, something simple as you come in, don't fill the Ebola forms. There are these particular forms that you're going to fill. And then if your flight is from Lagos, all of you from Lagos are going to the same bus, because clearly you've shared a whole cabin for the entire flight together. So the best thing is, okay, you stay together, you will go to a particular place together like that. But it was the first 60 people get into the bus, no distancing. We were not wearing masks at that time. And you go to the hotels, you're still on a buffet, people are still partying, you know. And you expect not to find cases here. You probably had maybe a tenth of the people there infected, but at the end of it, the more number of cases we got
in quarantine.
In quarantine.
So it's about management of things. It's not really about not understanding the so we can say that our medical personnel who are working in the background and trying to understand what is it that we are dealing with, those ones we could be saying they're consuming a lot of this information. What is this virus? Is it airborne? Is it not? Is it? Do we need to wash hands? Do we need to use masks? Those ones, the boiler room, basically the engine room of Afi House, those ones are dealing with very many unknowns and very many knowns. The person who's here at the helm, the minister, who has a calm head, should be able to be the one saying, all right, so this is what you guys have advised me, that we are going to ensure everybody who arrives at JKIA goes into quarantine. So now, how shall we manage this quarantine? How shall we ensure that what you're telling me works? How do we ensure that if somebody comes and they present themselves and they are COVID positive, and they tell us, I used to live, I was living in a flat in Rongai, we immediately deploy to Rongai, we do proper contact tracing, and we stop. We don't stigmatize. We have that. We have an isolation center in Bagathi, and this information is clearly being, passed on. Advise the president, please announce that schools go home so that we minimize movement. And also advise people to work from home as much as possible. Advise companies to let their workers work from home as much as possible. The biggest employer is the government. Tell civil servants to work at home as much as possible. Sound advice coming to the president. The implementation of that. How do we make sure that this works? The president has been given that. He's like, okay, so this is what we need. Yes. Are we going to reduce the numbers on the streets? Yes. Is this going to have an impact on the fight against COVID? Yes. I'm going to announce it. Now, implement it. Mutahi is sitting there, chairman of the SCA of NAC.
NRC.
He's also given that advice. He's issuing the orders. About managing it is why I'm faulting him. And I keep saying, this general up there, if we lose a war, we blame it on the general.
No, I agree with you. The buck stops with him, definitely. The buck stops with him at the Ministry of Health and as chairman of NERC. The buck stops with him because he is the one who's providing leadership, he's the one providing guidance and whatnot. He is getting advice from so many quarters, not just the boiler room with the medics, but he's also listening to health economists. He's also listening to economists. He also has to listen to teams from finance, everyone else. And at the end of the day, all this information is supposed to present to his counterparts at NERC and say, so this is everything we have. What is the best way for the country? Then if you're told it's A and not B, how do we make A work? If you have found, and as we said, this is a fluid situation, things are changing along the way. If you have found that Latif is the weak link in your team, get rid of him.
Latif.
Get rid of Latif. Put somebody else who will make the work, who will get the work done.
Have a strong chain through and through.
Because this particular you cannot afford to mess with it, because as we've seen, and our numbers are increasing, and for me, my worry is yes, it's good to identify and know people, but how many more other people are behind that? Remember, for every one confirmed case, you're looking at a transmission rate of at least 3 people. So there are 1,400 other people out there unidentified out of our 700. So you need to get it right as much as possible. Granted, he will falter here and there.
No, that's okay.
But if on the weighing scale you faltered more than you've won, there's a problem.
There's a problem. I think there's also I don't know if to call it fear or we call it laxity when it comes to putting your foot down on certain things, especially when it comes to government practice.
Yeah.
That the person who is a subordinate to you or the person who works parallel to you is not doing their job, and calling out somebody has become something that we don't touch, even with a 10-foot pole.
Mm-hmm.
To say that the management of this, what have we talked about? The management of quarantine centers, the management of isolation facilities, quarantine protocol, at-home stay, the charging of staff. Those are not things that he does physically, but I can bet you that he knows who does. He knows whose job it is within the ministry that is supposed to be getting these things done.
Yeah.
And I do agree that they say that the fish rots from the head. If you have a problem along the body, it started at the head. So there's certain responsibility that he needs to put through if the person is not then doing that which you've asked them to do repeatedly.
He needs to come out more strongly. The way he comes out and his staff talking to us on TV and telling us, Kenyans, stop misbehaving. Come on, you people, we're gonna die.
If you behave normally, this virus will treat you abnormally.
Go back to the boardroom of Afya House and sit down with those people and tell them, listen, when we see big corporates rolling out programs, a lot of thinking goes behind it, and beyond thinking, a lot of execution. All hands on deck, ensuring that everybody knows what they're supposed to do. A big company like Apple today announces that they're rolling out a new iPhone. They are dealing with pre-orders. They're dealing with distribution across the globe. How do you think that is done? You think someone just sits there and so just send these things, people are going to buy? No. You go everywhere in the world and you'll find an Apple. So who is selling? Is it a mobile provider somewhere? Is it a shop? Do you have a dealership? Who is selling? How much is it going for? Convert from dollar to shillings. It's clear. This is how much it's going for in this country. And this is what happens in case you need service, in case you have any inquiries to make, in case there are issues about the warranty. It's all laid out on paper and it's followed up. We have very good plans. And you've shown us this, Dr. Mercy. We keep talking about them. We have a protocol for everything. We have a protocol for home-based care. We have a protocol for quarantine facilities. We have a protocol for isolation facilities. We have a protocol for county management. We have a protocol for communication between national government and county government. We have a protocol for managing security and lockdowns and such. All those, there's a booklet for each. But they stay like that. They're just booklets. If somebody does not even know that the form that people have filled upon arriving from Guangzhou, China, is the same form that was filled by people who arrived from India, what are we talking about? And then we sit back and say, no, come on, it's a form. What is the issue? Don't you understand that the form is telling you to go and quarantine? Whether it's saying home, it's saying facility. The issue is
that thing didn't sit well with you. That thing didn't.
It didn't.
It didn't sit well with you.
Not at all.
It still hurts.
It completely
still pains you.
Because someone, what do you mean?
That still pains you.
Because I was coming from the background of before that. What we had people who are arriving from China and they are filling out a form for DRC. If you've been to DRC lately, and then you've been told go home and self-quarantine. And then one of them does not self-quarantine, does not observe self-quarantine. And we, put them and hoist them up there and we want to burn them on the stakes and say, oh, this deputy governor is going to kill people. Basically, he's just trying to pass on the blame to somebody else. The deputy governor of Kilifi, in my opinion, he's just lived his life. The government, somebody should be alongside him in court. Who did not manage quarantine? Who did not ensure that the Kilifi deputy governor did not stay in quarantine for 14 days? Who was supposed to have ensured that?
Because, at that time, what needed to have been done, because they had not banned flights, they were not so clear about quarantine, mandatory quarantine, self-quarantine. They're just telling people, go and self-quarantine. At that very beginning, what should have happened was tell everyone that comes into the country, go and stay in your house. And they should have engaged like community health volunteers, nurses, clinical officers, the nearest health facility to say, in this vicinity, this is your catchment area. Anyone who's coming in from the country and is coming into your catchment area, we are notifying you so that you do a follow-up. Because granted, here, since we are not like China, where we have a digital app where we will be able to follow people in some countries like Canada, where if you're supposed to be in quarantine and you leave your house, the authorities are notified. Since we are not yet there, you have to use manpower. And your manpower is on the ground. We don't expect that Mutahi Kagwe will know whether I've stayed in my house or not. We do not. But we expect that this whole chain, that's why in our level of hospitals, we are from level 6 up all the way to a level 1 to your dispensaries and your health centers. And all of these have healthcare personnel. Government is the biggest employer of healthcare personnel. Engage all of these people and now tell us, these dispensaries with so many people man this particular area. Check on A, B, C, and D and make sure they complete their 14-day mandatory quarantine. People will do that because it is part of your healthcare system. It's part of a way of ensuring that these public health interventions are put in place and are implemented to the letter. 1. 2, when you banned flights and you say now, and that was, I think it was on a 23rd, on a Friday, and you're saying by 25th, all flights as at this time will no longer be allowed except cargo flights, then you should have known that these people need government mandated mandatory quarantine or have an option for home-based quarantine with protocols to follow and people to follow up. But what we did is the thing that is still biting us now.
Unfortunately,
yes. Then the other big thing that we have botched is tests. When we are at 28,000 tests, and I remember my colleague Rita Tinina asked this to the DG, those were 21,000 people. That means we are not testing enough. And we have said this enough times in this show. We are not testing enough people to know who to identify, who to isolate, who to quarantine, where, and what to do. Do you escalate your measures? Do you de-escalate? And then with having not tested enough people, we have started de-escalating and opening restaurants, opening eateries, allowing people to eat and drink, yet we do not know the true state of affairs. What are we trying to do?
Right.
So we wanted to talk to the CS Mutahi Kagwe from about 9:25. He had told us that he was going to be in a meeting in earlier hours. John, you've been trying to call him. How? Phone not going through. Mteja wa nambari unayopiga hapatikani kwa sasa. We will notify you when the mobile subscriber is available. Okay. So our mobile subscriber, Mutahi Kagwe, is not available for now.
Unfortunately.
It's coming up to 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. We will notify you when the mobile subscriber is back.
That's unfortunate because I hope we were not prepping too hard to ask the questions.
The questions that we had.
Yeah, we should have.
And it was going to be a conversation, and he was ready. He was ready to speak to us yesterday. Things do happen overnight. It's
13 to 10. Good morning.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Twitter at SpiceFMKE.
Right, so I mean, it's necessary to look
Spice
at,
up your life.
Good to have an authority.
Spice up your
I mean,
life.
a lot of the issues that we've raised this morning, coming out of the sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. To give kind of direction to, and I think it's absolutely necessary. I think he's very cognizant of what's going on here.
Definitely,
and the magnitude of it.
Being at the helm of the ministry, being at the helm of the National Emergency Response
The person
Committee.
you've called is not reachable. We will notify you when the mobile subscriber is back.
Okay,
if you wish
please
to
tell
leave a
us.
voice message, then please do so
You wanna leave a
after
voice
the
message?
tone.
Go ahead.
Voice mailbox of your current dialed number is full.
Again.
Sorry, temporarily you cannot leave a voicemail.
I guess we're not the only ones trying to leave messages for the CS.
John has left 25 messages.
We're not the only one trying.
He filled up his
You
inbox.
filled up the voicemail.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to leave a message on behalf of all the Kenyans who are eager to have answers to this, because being at the helm of the ministry, being at the helm of the National Emergency Response Committee, he is very knowledgeable on a lot of things. Many of the pieces of this whole coronavirus response, he's the one who's well aware of it, and not just the coronavirus. Remember, all these other diseases have not taken a back seat. We still have malaria, we still have HIV, we still have drug shortages, we still have all of those things. So
Blood.
Yes, the blood crisis, and we saw yesterday there was the degazettement.
Tell us about that, actually. Just break the news.
Okay, so
We've been talking about the advisory committee that was formed by the CS Mutahi Kagwe, and this was to come in and do a number of things, among them advise on the way forward, how best to manage the blood bank, come up with a policy, help with legislation. They even went to Parliament. They made a presentation before the Parliamentary Health Committee,
telling us that there's no blood in the country.
Yep.
So this National Advisory Committee was set up to advise and oversee the supply and utilization of blood and blood products in the country. So it's a 10-man committee and is chaired by Abbas Gule. So yesterday, 11th May, the CS now wrote to these particular members, the 10 of them, about the degazettement of the National Advisory Committee. And this was because on the 4th May 2020, and I read it verbatim, Dr. Frida A. Govedi, the immediate head of Department of Blood Transfusion, Tissue and Human Organ Transplant, obtained ex parte orders in the Employment and Labour Relations Court, cause number 177 of 2020, reinstating her to her previous position in the ministry, and the application is being heard inter partes on 14th May 2020. Given the existence of the ex parte order, the National Advisory Committee on Blood and Blood Products is no longer tenable in light of the court order by Justice Ellen Wasilwa. In the circumstances, your appointments to the National Advisory Committee on Blood and Blood Products has and is hereby cancelled with immediate effect. Consequently, Gazette Notice number 3241 dated 9th April is now revoked to avoid a functional overlap in light of the court order. So, the immediate former head, and here there was another head that had been appointed, Charles Romba, and we talked to him last week.
Yeah, and he wasn't aware whether she's back.
Exactly, but now clearly she is back. And so the leadership wrangles at the blood transfusion unit will hamper the progress towards sorting out our blood and blood products issues in the country.
What is the link
We
between
can see that from a
the
mile
advisory
away.
committee and the head of the organization? Was the advisory committee coming to take over management?
Nope. The advisory committee, the role of the advisory committee was bigger.
It's a task force, basically, just like all task forces in government.
Yeah, so their role was bigger in that you're looking at this blood and blood products from a countrywide perspective on a long term. And remember, there's 1 billion World Bank funds linked to it. So we do not have enough money, because for you to have enough blood for a year, you need about 4 billion at the very least for you to be able
mobilize.
to mobilize and manage and everything about blood. So 1 billion is really just a quarter of what you need. So this committee was supposed to, align all of those things and draw a roadmap on how we are going to manage our blood and blood products. But now here, there's a problem.
So they've been fired. And the reason being given here is because the former head of the blood transfusion services has gone to court and she's obtained orders reinstating her back to her office.
Yes.
And because of that, because there's a case going on, you guys who are coming to advise me and advise the country on how best to manage our blood.
Could be, and this is a speculation, could be, because as Ndo says, the fish rots from the head could be part of the cleanup was to change the leadership so that with the right leadership, with the right leadership from the outset, right management of the blood transfusion and right advisory committee, then everything runs properly right from the outset.
Makes sense.
Could be that was happening.
Makes
so
sense.
with the former head coming back, then
there's no more need for advice.
You need to halt everything until you sort out the court order.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, who suffers?
Kenyans yet again.
I think it would have been very important to hear from the CS why he had to make this move, because from where I sit, it still needs to get the advice. We still need to look at both short-term, medium-term and long-term plans on how to manage our blood bank and how to ensure that we mobilize, we get there at least 1 million people. It's not 1 million pints, is it?
No, 500,000.
Yeah.
500,000 people per year.
Yeah, 500,000 people per year contributing and keeping our blood flowing. We still need to think about that.
It still needs to happen.
That needs to continue happening. So unless there was, in that court order obtained by Dr. Govedi, there was something that also said that these guys had advised that I be kicked out, or maybe adversely mentioned. And even if they're adversely mentioned, send somebody, a lawyer, to go and represent this issue in court. Just because a CS is adversely mentioned doesn't mean that the CS steps aside.
Just to give Mutahi the benefit of doubt, could be just being a good citizen and following judicial orders and the court order, so that you do not seem to undermine the court processes, because it's one government at the end of the day. So I think it's just being a good citizen. You don't want to undermine the other arm of government, the judiciary. You want to give that process time. And chances are, anyway, as you said, when the king wants, the king gets. You'll go to court. If your case for kicking the previous head out is valid, the Employment and Labor Relations Court will give you will give you your orders, and you'll go back to business as usual. So it may just be maybe a week or two. But hopefully, even as this particular head has gone back to office, I hope things are running.
This is the thing. With all of this hullabaloo and the fracas all around this, the hope is that, yes, that blood is flowing, or that we'll get to the place where blood is flowing. Because it's not just about somebody backing orders from a big chair. It's about actually making sure that the management of this vital resource is actually being done. And across the country, even when we were having this conversation last week, somebody was talking to us at that moment, trying to donate blood at Thika, in one of the hospitals in Thika, and could not do so because the answer they were being given was, sorry, we can't receive your blood because we're not able to store, we're not able to test. Nothing. And it's ridiculous that we should be at that point. Things cannot have ground to a complete halt while people are fighting over who's going to sit in the chair.
And it's not just blood. Maybe we should discuss this tomorrow or the rest of the week. We also have issues with supplies of medicines in the country. So there's a lot that is not going right because all our focus, all our antenna is on COVID. Like the other obvious thing that has suffered, for example, is the response to floods, because we are all looking at COVID. We forget that, and now Jubilee, unfortunately. We forget that, life is still happening for a lot of people. And the immediate threat for some people is that I do not have antimalarials or I do not have hydroxychloroquine.
Okay.
So it would have been actually very good to have the CS. We had a mountain of questions. I think
we'll try and get him. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Somebody who's from his office has actually just texted me, says he's still in a meeting. The meeting that was starting earlier is still ongoing. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he was in a meeting.
Okay.
Right? And he switched off his phone. And you know how government meetings operate. Meeting is supposed to start at 9. It starts at 11:30. Okay? So if we look at all those things and say, okay, Mutahi, all right, for today, we'll try and get back in touch with him and see if we can reschedule this, because the questions today will still be valid tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
Even a week from now, they'll still be valid.
They will still be valid.
And at least now he has an idea, the kind of questions that we wanted to ask. If somebody from his office has called, obviously, they've been listening. So they have an idea, the kind of questions that we want to ask. So they'll come better prepared even for tomorrow's conversation. So, yeah, Mr. CS, we look forward to speaking to you soon on behalf of all the Kenyans who are listening in to the Situation Room.
I know I dressed up in a suit for him.
Just for the phone call.
Just for the phone call.
Fantastic, Eric.
Coming up to the end of the show, just a reminder of today's proverb. This is from the book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. If a child washes his hands, he could eat with kings. Ndu. What does that mean?
Get ready for the future, my friend. You clean up, you could find yourself amongst those who make the big decisions and could be amongst those making those decisions as well.
Okay. Say goodbye on that note.
Goodbye.
Oh, that's so polite.
She's washing her hands.
She's washing her hands. An opportunity can come in anytime. You need to be ready.
At any moment. Say goodbye, Dr. Marcy.
Yeah, let's wash our hands, not just for COVID,
right,
but for the chances that an opportunity may come along your way. You should be ready.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. Good morning.